Hey everybody, it's JJ and we're back again for another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. I think this is 84, if that's right. Hopefully everybody is having a positive and productive Friday. Everybody's ending out the week on a good footing. And if you're on the West Coast, maybe getting a little bit of break of that rain and hopefully maybe enjoying a little bit of spring, right? In terms of it kind of brightening up, although it's been fantastic to have it as of late. But with that being noted, we've got a lot of things to go ahead and jump into in terms of this stream. We're going to actually be talking about, let's see, actually close to like 180 something UEFI releases that actually have been issued in the last week. We've actually got some great new updates in terms of products, not that many, but definitely some nice options where we're going to be, of course, talking about this guy right here, brand new ROG STRIX B760-A gaming Wi-Fi. This is the DDR5 version, continuing on with the updates as of late where we've had DDR5 updates to DDR4 based offerings. We've also got the long-awaited TUF Gaming VG32UQA1A monitor, which is going to be an HDMI 4K based monitor that I know actually a lot of people have been waiting about. We'll also, of course, be touching on the recent announcement with, of course, our ASUS Noctua 4080 series based graphics card. And of course, hopefully, if we've got enough time, we're going to be diving into, of course, a great PCDIY Builder Spotlight, be able to take a look at your guys' latest and greatest builds, as well as talk about some cool promotions and some giveaways that we have going on. So as always, we've got a packed week in terms of a lot of things to be able to run into in terms of today's stream. But let's see, first and foremost, who we have joining us on the stream today. Let's see, we've got Tech joining us. Happy to have you here, man. Liking that screenshot. 6.3 gigahertz. Nice. Got some overclocking action going on there. Fantastic, man. Hello, Hichem. Happy to have you here, man, on the stream. We've got Michael joining us as well, man. Happy to have you here, man. Thanks so much for joining us here on the stream. We've got Nature and Cycling. Wow, all the way from the UK, man. Friends across the pond, man. Fantastic. Happy to have you here as well. We've got, let's see, Andreas, man. Happy Friday, man. Fantastic. We're getting more rain next week. Yeah, I think we're going to be in the same camp with you. I think we're going to be getting a little bit of rain, maybe even this weekend, but definitely going to be getting some next week. But hey, it's California. We've definitely been needing it. So no worries there. Just make sure to brace your fences, right? Erica, as always, fantastic. Thank you for joining us the stream and letting us know that the audio is all good to go. And let's see who else we got. We got Akash also joining us. And let's round it out with Al. Is that right, Al? You get a double thumbs up, man. You're showing your dog in your profile pic, so that's good for me. All right, let's get ready to go ahead and kick things off. First and foremost, I think we've got some UEFI BIOS announcements. Actually, not just a few. We've actually got a lot of UEFI BIOS announcements. Let me go ahead and bring up my actually form over here so I can go ahead and reference actually all the number of UEFI releases that we've got going on. So let me go ahead and bring that up. So as always, what we try to do, if you're maybe joining us for the first time, is that generally over the last 7 to 10 days, I try to consolidate essentially the UEFI BIOS announcements that we release for our motherboards, both Intel and AMD based motherboards. They are generally going to be probably focused at usually recent based motherboards, but of course we are always working usually within about the first, I'd say 12 to as much as about 36 months on varying UEFI releases. These could be for interoperability, compatibility, for performance. They could be for adding in a RATA resolution, number of different variables in terms of why you would have a UEFI BIOS released. So we try to go ahead and let you guys know that. Now, normally I do have a UEFI BIOS post posted in our PCDIY group. I have not gone ahead and yet posted it for this release because, like I said, there's actually quite a number of them that we do have available. But I'm going to go ahead and show you actually what that post looks like because there's a great FAQ that I include within that before I talk actually about the models that are going to actually have a UEFI BIOS release. So let me actually head over here into our PCDIY group. And if you guys are checking us out on Facebook or you're checking us out on YouTube, you'll see that we do have featured announcement posts, and under the featured announcement posts you can find essentially the latest UEFI release. And like I said, usually I post them on Fridays. Sometimes it might happen on the weekend, just depends when I have the opportunity to note all the specific models and everything along those lines. So let me go ahead and jump in here into the group and I'll go to UEFI BIOS. You can also use the tag. I believe I have the tag set as UEFI BIOS. So that's the easiest way. Like you can just go into the search tab if you don't want to go into the feature tabs, although the feature tab I think is the easiest option, right? But let me go ahead and head over here. Give me 1 second and I will bring this up here. Oh, I might have not tagged actually last week's. Okay, so I'll need to go ahead and make sure and tag that, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and show you. So The list is, as you can see right here, it's pretty extensive. So if we talk about the actual number of motherboards that we've got, it's actually a pretty extensive list. A good number of models are actually going to be for the AM5. So you can see right here, the X670E, -F-E-A, the Hero, the Gene, the Extreme, the Creator Wi-Fi, and then also some of our B650, so the B650 Creator, the TUF Gaming X670E plus Wi-Fi all saw an update to essentially a newer formalized release. Now these releases also contained a GISA-based firmware. Now I would already say at this point, for these motherboards, you're probably already looking at what I would refer to as a mature release. This means that if your system's running, there's not really any reason for you to necessarily go and update to this build. Where I would say there's going to be a specific kind of improvement, or it would be of a benefit, would be two factors. One, if maybe you're going to be building, of course, an X3D series based platform, you want to make sure to have the corresponding AGISA, which is designed for the X3D series CPUs. And then secondary to that, if you're running not just standard DDR5, but you're actually running dual rank DDR5, you could potentially see some improvements in terms of the dual rank DDR5 overclocking experience. But as always, too, keep in mind, like we've talked about with DDR5, essentially when you increase the rank, you're generally going to reduce the DRAM scaling. So single rank memory, such as let's say like a 16 or 32 gigabyte kit, will scale higher in terms of its memory frequency than you would have for a larger density and generally like a dual rank based kit. Now, these latest UEFI releases also help to incorporate non-binary memory support. So these are going to be for some of these new memory modules that you're seeing coming to market with like 48 gigabyte configurations or some of these higher configurations. So we issued that UEFI release already for our Intel series motherboards, but it's also making its way into the AMD series. In addition to that, there's actually a big update to a lot of AM4 based motherboards. And so you're going to see this is across a huge number of motherboards. So B450 series, A series, X470 series, X370 series, all of these, like I said, that's part of the reason why this update, this post that I'm going to have in is going to be something I think close to like 190 motherboards. So if you probably have an AM4 motherboard, you might be seeing an update here. And definitely, like I said, if you have an AM5 board, you're definitely seeing the update, whether it's going to be the B650, B650E, X670, or X670E. As you can see right here, a lot more of the B650 series motherboards and more even of the X670 based motherboards. Now I'm going to quickly show you as a reference example what that UEFI looks like, just for reference, but there are also some other motherboards that are also seeing an update in here, where we have actually Z490 series based motherboards that are also getting an update. So keep that in mind. There's also those boards for sometimes that's a very mature platform. There shouldn't be any reason for you to necessarily go out of the way to update the UEFI, but they have gone ahead and seen UEFI BIOS releases. And similarly also additional releases for DDR5 based platforms with Z690 based releases as well. So you can see really, like I said, a pretty extensive list of boards there. So I will have the formalized post in the PCDIY group, like I said, a little bit later, and you can go ahead and check that out. Let me go ahead and bring up that post here really quick so you can actually see what this looks like. UEFI. And here you can see, so this is in the group, this is usually kind of what like this post will look like. So you'll see it says like new UEFI BIOS announcements for ASUS motherboards, ASUS, AMD, and Intel motherboards. It'll tell you the work week. I'll note the chipsets that all see the update. And then I actually have questions. And some people kind of like sometimes get turned off by like, hey, it's too much text. You should really read it, because almost, I'd say 85% of all questions that I ever get relating to the UEFI are answered in these, like, should I update? Will it affect performance? How will it affect overclocking, right? If it's a beta, should I update? Should I not update? All of those things have been answered in there. And there's also guidance on what you may want to do if you actually update the UEFI. And then I will actually break down all the models there with all the corresponding numbers, okay? So that is going to be the UEFI BIOS update. Like I said, a large number of updates this week, okay? So let me just quickly see here if any kind of quick questions came up. We are waiting for a 4K monitor. I'm not sure what you mean by like waiting for a 4K. We have tons of 4K monitors, but we are going to have another 4K monitor with this TUF Gaming monitor that I'm going to be talking about too in a little bit, right? So I want to buy an ASUS ROG STRIX B760-E gaming Wi-Fi, but I don't find it in my area. That can be a little bit tricky. Bantu, I don't know what region you might be in. So if you're in North America, it should be available. But if you're outside North America, it can be a little bit tricky because not every single motherboard is going to be carried in every single region. So if you want to confirm whether that motherboard is even available in your region, reach out to ASUS in your region. So you can go to the ASUS website in your country or in your region, and then use the little drop-down tab that says marketing, and then you can reach out to the marketing team and see if they can confirm that. Jose asking about Z790 Apex never arrived. I'm not sure what you mean by never arrived. The Apex is actually an EOL based motherboard. It's discontinued. It's essentially, it was a limited production based motherboard. So pretty much once it sold out, it's sold out. Now in North America, we did coordinate with our headquarters team to essentially get the last production batch allocation shipped over into us. So there'll be a limited quantity that we will have for resale in North America, probably about the end of this month and the beginning of next month approximately. So we will have a post in our PCDIY group. If you're in North America and you're interested in picking up the Apex, I would definitely say make sure to get in on it, because once it's gone, it's gone. It's not coming back. This is not out of the norm. Some users get surprised by this. They're like, motherboards are not made indefinitely, and they're not. Certain models we might have for a certain period of time. Now, that doesn't mean like the product's not going to be supported. Take, for instance, like recent updates that we've issued for the Z790 or Z690, you would still see those updates on a board like the Apex, even though it was a limited edition board. Similarly, like the Maximus Z790 Extreme, the Z790 Extreme actually went EOL this month. So it is what's considered an end-of-life product. We're no longer actively producing the Maximus Z790 Extreme. Now, Maximus Z790 Extreme owners, right, like this one is the Z690 Extreme, Z790 Extreme, you're still going to continue to see the UEFI updates that we issue, even though we might have only, let's say, like the Hero board might be available, take for instance, right? But this is, I would say, fairly common for some of the more niche or specialized boards, right? Where not every single board will be available through the entirety of the life cycle of the chipset. Sometimes there can be a refresh that will come out at a later stage that will replace another board, but keep that in mind, okay? All right, hopefully that answers that question right there. Somebody's asking, is we need a TUF 360 AIO. Well, if you're part of the ASUS PCDIY group, you've already seen the teaser that I've posted. We will actually be coming out later for our next generation. So right now we have our TUF Gaming LC ARGB based units, and those go up to 240. Reality is 360 is not really needed. You know, of course, this is a 360, and we have 360 with our Strix LC series, the Ryu series, and the Ryujin series. So from inventory and product matrix standpoint, it becomes really challenging because you're selling literally then 4 options of a very similar type of product, right? And, you know, you're trying to then figure out how to best position, you know, price to performance, the feature set and things along those lines. And that can be complicated for the user. That being noted, we will be offering a TUF Gaming 360mm AIO later on. I don't have any specifics for you as far as the date, but if you want to see the preview post where I've gone already and showed that out, check out it in the PCDIY group, okay? All right. See, any other quick questions right there? Is the ROG Loki going to be available in Canada? Yes. Canada always takes, though, a little bit longer resident to its overall logistics. So it takes just a little bit more time to go from the distribution center to the Canadian partners and then roll out. So usually there's maybe around like a 2 to sometimes up to like a 5-week delay, or maybe not delay, but difference between the release in the United States versus the release in the Canada market. So I would expect, though, to see it probably, I'd say, sometime in April, right? Where the Loki probably in terms of availability for the US, it'll be available probably within the next, you know, maybe about the next 2 weeks. Could possibly roll into early April, depending on the channel partners. Different channel partners have different logistic timeframes, but you should be seeing that. Why are power supplies low stock? I'm not sure what you mean by low stock. We're right now just going through a refresh period. It's not so much a low stock. So an example is like our ROG Thor power supplies. We transitioned into all the ROG Thor P2 series, right? And so we had kind of a buffer period between, we're not going to bring in more of that original V1 series. So we're trying to push in the inventory for the P2 model. Or like our ROG Strix power supplies, there's no reason to immediately bring in more of the older model when we're going to be bringing out the ROG Strix Aura ATX 3.0 power supplies in Q2. Same thing like with the TUF Gaming series, where we didn't have them for quite some time after they sold out, because we were going to be bringing in the ones that just launched last week, which are going to be the TUF Gaming ATX 3.0. So sometimes it's just a transitional aspect. And there is also still some legitimate production challenges when you talk talk about the pandemic and how that can affect production and sourcing and supply chains and different things like that. So there are still a lot of factors that go into product development. But with that, let's go ahead and keep moving things along, guys. I don't want to go ahead and get stuck on one thing here. Let's go ahead and jump into our giveaway, right? So I think I talked about this giveaway last week, but it's such a nice giveaway. We're going to talk about it again because it is still active. So let me go ahead and bring up the link for it right here. And this is going to be for our actually TUF Gaming giveaway, which is a pretty awesome giveaway. There's actually a huge number of items that are being given away here. And this actually is a global giveaway. So that means essentially that regardless of where you're at, you can go ahead and enter into this. A lot of the giveaways that we do post on our ASUS North American based social channels are going to be limited to North America because there are legal factors, but this actually giveaway is being executed by our global team. So it is actually a global giveaway. So you can see right here, there's a lot of really great promos that are happening right here. There's actually some giveaways of a lot of hardware. You can see from CPU to a TUF Gaming Z790 Plus motherboard, both the DDR5 and DDR4, B760 DDR4 based motherboard, a 4070 Ti, and then another 4070 Ti, the OC edition. So essentially both the same card, just one overclocked and one not overclocked. Both, of course, support overclocking. Our TUF Gaming LC240 ARGB AIO cooler, the latest TUF Gaming 1000 watt ATX 3.0 series power supply, our 4K HDMI 2.1 28-inch base monitor, our latest GT split chamber chassis, GT502, and then TUF Gaming H1 headset and TUF Gaming M3 mouse. So pretty sweet. All you have to do is just actually go through the game applet, go ahead and enter in and get in on the opportunity to be able to win some awesome hardware. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat for you guys. If you're interested in getting in on it, you've got about a month left. So you got a lot of time to enter in, but go ahead and get in while you guys can. Let me see right here. Well, ASUS, yeah, so I've already gone ahead and already actually talked about this in the past. I'm not going to give any details about it. We are evaluating essentially a 420 millimeter AI solution. From our perspective, there's not as much real value. The reality is that the reason why there's limited value in developing a 420 millimeter solution is that once you start to get into that size, one, you could argue the cost relative value is stronger for maybe considering custom water cooling, but some people may prefer the simplified solution of going with an AIO. That being noted, you then also run into considerable mechanical compatibility issues because a very small number of chassis, take for instance, like right now, all of our chassis could not support a 420 millimeter AIO until we just launched our Hyperion. And even overall throughout the industry, 420 millimeter rad support is very small. There's not many manufacturers that actually produce chassis that actively support a 420 millimeter based radiator. So it's a very niche kind of part of the market. And so we don't necessarily see it as a high volume focus. That being noted, we are designing and developing a 420 millimeter solution. As to when we're going to come out with it or under what series or anything like that, I have no information to tell you. And if you're part of the PCDIY group, you'll find out about it as soon as we're ready to actually provide more information. Okay. I like Michael's response there. It times to get it here on the dog sled, right? Yeah, the Canadians that love their snow, right? Well, maybe sometimes they love their snow, and maybe in other times they don't necessarily love their snow as much, right? Hazma says, I wanted to buy initially the Ryujin 2 EVA. Yeah, that's like anything that you see that's like limited edition. The EVA products we talked about for a very long time here on our stream, that was 100% a limited edition series. So if you wanted it, you should buy it right when it's available. Or just like the Gundam editions, because once those products get sold out, they don't get restocked, right? We just maintain the standard models. So take for instance, like here, the Ryujin 2, we have the Noctua series, and then we also have the ARGB based edition, right? And so right now, our current kind of high-end base cooler designs, we currently have the Ryu, which is a white model, and we have it in black. We have a 240 and a 360, and the Ryujin, similarly, we have a 240 and we have a 360. We have the ARGB and we have the Noctua editions. So we have quite a number, and that's just for, like I said, the high-end. Then we also have the ROG STRIX LC series, LC2, and then we also have the TUF Gaming LC ARGB based editions, right? All right, Hey Justin, happy to have you here on the stream. Cheer for JJ. I'm gonna keep bugging my team. Hopefully, maybe one of these days I'll replace this one right here and get a nice SL400, man. But thanks for the advocacy. I appreciate it. All right. So very cool. Hey Stuart, happy to have Stuart. One of the, again, fantastic builder and modder. Done amazing work. If you guys have not checked out some of the recent posts that he's shared, not only in this group but of course also on his YouTube channel, on his website, you want to check him out. Some absolutely stunning builds that he's done, not only of course in his own chassis that he collaborated with me and Leon, but also in our latest generation Hyperion, where he actually did 2 really awesome colorways. Really loved it, and actually we showed those off in yesterday's graphics card stream, so pretty sweet there. All right guys, so that takes care of the TUF Gaming base giveaway. Let's go ahead and keep moving things along here. So next up, we got just some new products that we're going to go ahead and highlight on. I'm going to do a little bit of a teaser right here though, for a product that's not 100% actually yet in terms of new product release, but that I did actually have an update on, that we are going to be having a new model under our B760 series. So our B760 series have gone ahead and already launched, but we have had some questions. Hey, are you guys essentially going to be releasing an updated version of the Creator? And I now can tell you that we will be actually offering an updated version of the ProArt Creator. So normally for our Creator series, which are underneath the ProArt series, so we have essentially 5 different series, right, where you have the, of course, ROG line, which is our formal high-end line. So that would be like a Crosshair or Maximus series. And then below that, we have our ROG Strix series. And then that easiest way to tell the difference is one has Strix in its name, the other one does not have Strix in its name. One has actual proper names like Maximus Hero or Maximus Extreme, right? And the Strix models don't have names, they have model numbers, right? Then you have TUF Gaming series. We then have our Prime series, right? And then we also have our ProArt series. We technically also have another series, which is called our WS series, which occasionally can kind of show up in different respective chipsets. But for the most part, those are generally the 5 primary series that most people are familiar with. But let's go ahead and take a look here at this guy right here, the brand new ProArt B760. So this is going to be the ProArt B760 baseboard. It follows very much the design language and the ID that we've had in the prior kind of ProArt series. I really love it. You know, really clean, refined design aesthetic that we have with our ProArt series. I really always love this kind of small gold accents that they offer on the board. I believe it offers that kind of nice distinguishing character element that we have compared to like the Prime series, where you're going to see the black, you're going to see white, and you're going to see silver, compared to like the ROG Strix, which are generally going to be monochrome. So it's usually black. Maybe there's a little bit of gray tones. There might sometimes be an accent. Accent a lot of times is the RGB. ROG definitely is very monochrome, and doesn't have a lot of kind of edgy styling. It's very kind of refined, very polished in terms of the design. If you actually compare, a lot of people think Strix and Maximus look the same. They do not. They're actually very different in terms of the ID design, but I really love the way that this ProArt series board looks. I love these nice little embellishments that we did for this actually update. You can see we actually put a little bit of text here on the VRM heat sinks. We maintain the nice actually kind of like monogram that we have here on the transparent IO shroud. And then, like I said, the nice gold accents throughout there. So this is going to be the ProArt board. Cool thing here that you're going to get comparatively, why would you maybe get with the B series? Well, a lot of these people, they don't necessarily have a focus on saying, hey, I need overclocking support. You can still overclock the DDR memory on this platform. You're going to get robust expansion, but you're going to get nice updates in terms of support for things like dual networking, right? Where normally on, let's say, something like a B series board, you're not going to have dual networking, right? You might have just standard 2.5G based connectivity. So that is going to be a benefit of, say, hey, you know, as a creator, maybe you're going to have one that's going to be set up locally for your NAS or your SAN connection, and then another one dedicated for your internet service, right? So that could be kind of one of the scenarios of why you would want to maybe benefit from the dual network connection. But overall, I think it's a fantastic looking board. We'll have more on it in the not too distant future, so make sure to go ahead and keep it tuned for that. But just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a teaser, essentially, of that upcoming product. So next up there, now that we've got that one out of the way, let's get ready, I guess, and talk about some of these actual new products that we do have actually coming out. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. And what do you guys say? Do we cover the motherboard or we cover the monitor first? Which one do you guys want to find out about? So just a refresher, right? We've got essentially these two new items right here before we get into the Noctua. We can either do the ROG STRIX B760-A gaming Wi-Fi, or we can do the TUF Gaming VG monitor. So let's see what the feedback is. Hey, Poor Greek Builds, man. Happy to have you here, man. Fantastic. Hey, Snef, the one, the only, the Canadian Grandmaster. Happy to have you, man. Fantastic. And looks like Michael was the first one up. He said monitor. So Erica said monitor, Michael said monitor, and Tech said monitor. All right, so I guess it's going to be the TUF Gaming monitor. So let's go ahead and jump into this one. All right, so why this monitor is actually pretty interesting is, you know, I think that definitely with some of the recent GPU releases, there's been more interest to be able to see, hey, I'm now finally kind of interested in maybe stepping up into 4K gaming, right? But the reality is that, you know, is your monitor, of course, one, a 4K monitor, right? Does it support higher refresh rates? Now with cards that you're seeing, whether you're talking about, you know, AMD's RX based lineup, so you're going to have higher performing cards like the, of course, 7000 series, 7900 XT, 7900 XTX, and of course, even the prior generation high-end 6800 series, and then also, of course, cards like you've got with the 4070 Ti, 4080, 4090. These are all fantastic cards for ultra high fast refresh rate gaming at 1080p, 1440p, and even actually high refresh rate gaming at 4K. Very much depends on the game engine because, of course, you know, playing something like Overwatch versus Fortnite versus Cyberpunk versus The Witcher versus Forza are all very different, right? And you could have very, very different actually gameplay experiences, right? Like even a lot of indie games that I enjoy, you know, could easily be driven at 4K resolution. So when people talk about 4K gaming isn't a thing, I think it very much just depends on the game that you're playing. But let's go ahead and take a look right here. So this is going to be the VG32UQA1A. It's going to be 31.5 inches, a 4K based monitor, so 3840 by 2160. Supports up to a 160 hertz refresh rate. Does support eLNB sync. If you're not aware about what eLNB sync is, that essentially means it features backlight strobing support, and the sync portion means that we can run adaptive sync with the backlight strobing. Now, historically, you cannot run backlight strobing with adaptive sync at the same time. We were actually the first manufacturer to release this feature, and anytime you see that in a monitor, that eLNB sync, that's essentially what it means, is that you're able to take advantage of that. And the cool thing there is that, of course, the adaptive sync helps to give you essentially better consistency and no, of course, frame tears. And then the eLNB sync, where it can provide a potential benefit, would be in motion clarity. Now, it depends. Not every single user and every single game is going to benefit from it, but it's at least a nice option that you have that you can toggle on. FreeSync Premium support. 1 millisecond MPRT, of course, that's not going to be 1 millisecond gray to gray. On the relative average, I would probably say you're going to be talking about probably, you know, 5+ milliseconds here in terms of the overall kind of performance, but that's going to be variable. Also keep in mind, as always, right, when you're talking about actually high refresh rate based monitor, that something like variable overdrive is really nice. And the variable overdrive is important at helping to ensure better motion clarity and less things like overshoot or ghosting across the refresh range. Because of course, when you're playing a game, you're not always playing at something like 160 frames, right? You could actually be playing at, you know, 90 frames or 100 frames or 120 frames. So it's important to actually have the monitor be able to support a variable overdrive to offer a more consistent experience throughout the refresh rate range. 120% sRGB is great to be able to give us nice, punchy, dynamic, vibrant color. And then display HDR 400. Now, this is not going to be a display HDR monitor in the same way that we have like our 1000 nit based monitors, or something like even the UQX, which is a 1400 nit based monitor. Those feature full array local dimming and really will offer an impressive HDR experience. I think the main benefit you're going to have here as a normal user is most users with this class of monitor are not going to be playing in HDR, but they're going to play in SDR. The benefit here is going to be the standard SDR brightness is probably going to be brighter than maybe an older monitor that you might be upgrading from, especially if your monitor is 3, 4, 5 years old. Its SDR brightness performance might only be about maybe 250 nits or in that range. So being able to go to a monitor that could hit 300, 325, 350 nits plus actually will just have you have a brighter, bolder experience. So while this is not a HDR kind of focused monitor, the spec actually still is helpful in terms of giving you a better, I'd say, SDR gaming experience. So Another really cool part is this is HDMI 2.1. So the HDMI 2.1 compatibility is going to be fantastic because that means that you're going to get all the benefits of HDMI 2.1 in terms of increased bandwidth, automatic, of course, variable refresh rate support if you're going to plug this into a console. So if you do want to be able to have like kind of that cross scenario and you want to plug this into your console as well as your PC, it's really nice. But of course, you do have DisplayPort that is going to be present on here, and the DisplayPort will use display stream compression to be able to get up to that 4K 160 hertz base refresh rate. So that is how you're achieving that. Overall, really nice, clean, simple design, nothing super complicated. Nice, clean, thin bezel design, and you are going to be good to go. You do have this support, of course, of being able to do VESA mounting if you want to be able to go ahead and put this on an arm or something along those lines. You do, of course, also have our display widget software. So if you're not familiar with display widget, it's a cool UI that we offer within Windows, which allows you to make adjustments to things like contrast, brightness. You can put like on-screen timers on the screen. You can do all that. You can enable things like shadow boost. It's really cool because you don't have to physically touch the buttons on the monitor. It's one of my favorite and most overlooked features that we do offer on our monitor. Rounding out the connections, you're going to see HDMI 2.1, 2.1 DisplayPort, and then you also do have a USB hub, 2 USB ports on this guy. So overall, that's going to be a great addition to our actually lineup. I will also note, compared to some of the other options that are out there, many of the other 4K HDMI 2.1 based monitors are going to be an IPS based display. This is a VA based display. And that's kind of one of the most common questions I get from people is going to be, well, what is kind of the benefit between IPS and VA? Now, definitely if we go really back into the past, IPS would generally have been preferred because usually it was going to be more color accurate. It probably had better viewing angles, right? And even the response time, generally for a while, IPS was faster, which wasn't always the case. Definitely in the past, IPS was actually slower, especially compared to other panel types, but we saw improvement over time. But I'd say right now, one of the key benefits you're going to get with the VA panel compared to even our own 4K IPS-based offerings is VA offers much better contrast. So you're going to have, if you're somebody that's playing a lot of content that's going to be in that darker scenario and you're maybe more concerned a little bit about kind of blooming characteristics, this could be a little bit advantageous compared to, let's say, a traditional IPS-based display. Is essentially the contrast is roughly about double. It's about double the performance of an IPS-based monitor. So I think that's a nice benefit, and it helps to kind of give us a little bit more flexibility because we already offer a very performant 4K high refresh rate gaming monitor under our ROG STRIX lineup with our XG series, but that is going to be an IPS-based option. So here, this actually gives us another kind of option here to compare with having a VA-based monitor. So this is going to be a VA-based panel offering. See right here? Somebody asking right here is ROG monitor. Yeah, we do have ROG monitors. I mean, I'm not going to go over kind of the monitors that we already have available, but if you are interested, let me go ahead and bring this up here. So take, for instance, if you were looking at some ROG monitors that were 4K, I can give you a couple of reference here. So give me 1 second to bring up a couple here. So which one? I guess I can maybe bring up 3, depending, I guess, on the dimensions you might be considering, right? So let's do the PG42UQ, we'll do the PG32UQR, and then we would do maybe the XG27UQR. And maybe we'll add in the PG32UQX as kind of like the flagship, I think. Okay, yeah. So here's just a couple of different options, I guess, if you're looking for 4K offerings. This would be one option if you wanted ROG. So ROG STRIX XG27UQR. This is going to be coming in at $629, so similar price point. This one's actually a little bit smaller though. This is 27 inches, 144 hertz, display HDR 400, and has a little bit of a different ID design. Also, the RG monitors have more ergonomic adjustment. They're also factory calibrated, so that's going to be a difference. TUF Gaming monitors can offer very good color accuracy, but they're not factory calibrated out from the facility in the same way that the ROG STRIX monitors are. I also love that the ROG STRIX monitors do support the desk mount kit, which is a really cool kind of C-clamp mount design, which you can mount directly to kind of your table. which works really, really nicely. If you wanted to go something a little bit bigger, high performance, HDMI 2.1, PG32UQA1A is really probably my personal favorite. This guy's going to be a 32-inch 144 hertz HDMI 2.1 display, HDR 600, factory calibrated, really, really impressive display. And the text clarity on this monitor is absolutely outstanding. It was some of the absolute best in the industry. Part of that is, of course, when you go to 4K, either on 32 or also even on 27, I know some people have that debate on whether they think 4K at a smaller size is worth it. But if you really love super sharp text, the pixel density you get from 4K is absolutely outstanding and really allows for fantastic clarity and sharpness in your imagery. For gaming, you won't notice as much of a difference, but definitely if you're somebody that's doing desktop productivity, you could clearly notice the difference in terms of the pixel density, just in terms of the sharpness and the clarity from text. So a little pro tip there, if you really care about that, then actually 4K could be of interest to you in terms of that specification support. Going with one other monitor right here, let's go big. Let's go with the ROG Swift OLED. This is the PG32UQ, so this is going to be coming in at $1,400, and this is going to be our OLED. Now this, some people will potentially use it as productivity. I don't generally recommend OLEDs to be used for productivity. You have that potential for burn-in. They also are going to have lower brightness than you're going to have traditionally with LCD-based panels, right? There's also going to be the kind of subpixel structure isn't necessarily ideal for text-based rendering, but for gaming, for video content, for things along those lines, fantastic displays, and of course with that outstanding contrast performance that you have with the OLED due to its per pixel ability, right, really offers outstanding performance. So this is going to be another 4K option, and then we can round it out with something like the PG32UQX, which that's our flagship monitor. If you really want to go at the high end, you want the absolutely best, right? This is definitely probably the best, right, of the best here. Amazing color gamut, high refresh rate specification support, 4K. It also has that full array local dimming technology, 1,152 zones, display certification of over actually 1,400 nits. So this unit can show some truly impressive dynamic range when it comes to peak highlights within games. Like something like Forza on this monitor absolutely looks stunning. So really, really cool. So hopefully that answers your answer. You want some ROG 4K options? There you go. There's some 4K options. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into, I think, our next product here. We're going to take a look at the motherboard. So let me go ahead and bring up, this is going to be a new motherboard. So we're going to take a look here. It's going to be for the, bring it up, ROG STRIX B760-A gaming Wi-Fi. And I'll put this one right here. All right. So this one is going to be a great update if you're looking for a white themed based motherboard, but you don't want to go, too expensive. We do of course offer our ROG Strix series under the Z790 series, but you would definitely be looking at a bump up in terms of the relative price point. Here you still get a fantastic motherboard. You can support any 12th or 13th gen series CPU. Ideally, you would want to use a non-K series CPU because of course B series you cannot overclock the multiplier. You can run overclocked memory though, so you can definitely run faster memory if you wanted to. You want to run DDR 6000, 6600, 7000, especially with a 13th gen series processor. Some nice updates that you had in this generation is this did include the actual Q release feature. Q release feature is a really nice function that we integrated because it allows you to just hold that button down to easily eject the graphics card. We also updated the M.2 SSD support on this model. So here you actually have 3 M.2 based SSDs. All of them get heat sinks. Plus you also have the Q latch design, which is really easy to be able to go ahead and install your M.2 SSDs. You have that internal USB Type-C header that's also available to you right there. The Q latch, again, if you haven't seen it, it's this cool little just kind of toolless design. You can just literally angle in your M.2 SSD and you're good to go, right? Makes it very, very simple. In terms of the kind of simplicity of some nice other points, you have an integrated IO shield, right? And you're also going to get Wi-Fi on this model, and you're also going to get Bluetooth. So in terms of your connectivity, a great level of connectivity here where you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ports, 2 being USB-C. You also get a 20 gigabits port. That's great because based on our polling, most users only use a 5 gigabit based device. So even if you were to use like a USB hub connected to this port, and split it out 4 ways, that would still be essentially 4 5 gigabit ports, right? So that's still quite fast, especially because most users, the maximum speed device they have would be like a 5 gigabits external USB, like SSD or something along those lines. And that Wi-Fi is also going to be Wi-Fi 6E, versus like the recent update that we did for the TUF Gaming line was only Wi-Fi 6. So both of them give you Wi-Fi 6, but you even have that faster specification support on the Strix model here with it going with Wi-Fi 6E. Okay. From a performance tuning perspective too, also keep in mind that you do have our enhanced kind of power limit options. It's a great option that we have inside of the UEFI that allows essentially kind of the boosting behavior to work a little bit more aggressively, so that if you want even a little bit more performance out of the CPU, it's not unlocking the multiplier, but you can still get even a little bit better performance with a little bit better cooler. It will increase, of course, temperatures and power consumption, but if you want that, that is an option that we make available. Nice, robust VRM design, of course, great cooling in terms of the dual heatsink design, which is also making contacts not only with the power stages, but also with the inductors, or what people sometimes call the chokes. Like I said, robust memory support, where you can easily support 6,000 to 7,000 T based M memory. As always, though, keep in mind rank, density, population, and IMC have to be considered when you talk about overclocking memory. Lots of headers also on here too, where you talk about the headers. You've got, of course, your dual CPU, CPU OPT, 3 other chassis fan headers, and an AIO pump header are all present on there. So you've got more than enough headers to really kind of go with any type of standard configuration that you're looking for. And in terms of, let's see, does it have it over here? In terms of the RGB lighting, you do actually have 3 ARGB headers that are also on this board, along with a legacy 4-pin RGB header. And you can multiplex the headers on there as well. So if you want to essentially, you know, make a single cable, connect that to a header, and just be able to have some additional RGB running off there. In most situations, you know, it's tricky because people sometimes ask, like, what's the number of like fans or something that could run from the header? Depends, because different LEDs have different power draw. Some fans might have only like 5 LEDs, and some other fans might have like 9, and some might have like 12. And there could also be different power. But on average, generally an RGB header, you can usually multiplex between at least conservatively 3 to like maybe up to like 5 or 6 fans from one ARGB header. So even with 1, technically it's a lot for like a standard system, and with 3 it's more than enough to be able to multiplex, you know, more than enough fans to be able to have those be managed by the motherboard. I don't like using controllers, you know, but some of you that might be using competitors, fan cooling solutions that have essentially breakout boxes and controllers, your fans are going to connect to that and they won't connect to the motherboard, right? So just for reference, if you're kind of wondering the differential between the two, that's how it works out. All right, so overall, that gives us a quick wrap up there on the ROG Strix B760-A gaming Wi-Fi, and this one will be coming out. Let me go ahead and check here. I think I noted the pricing there a little bit earlier, right? Let me go ahead and bring those up. So for both of those, again, recapping on the price point, the ROG Strix B760-A gaming Wi-Fi is going to be coming at $250, and then the TUF Gaming monitor is going to be coming in at $630. Overall, release and availability time frame is going to probably be in about the next, probably about 2 weeks or so. So probably by about the end of this month, depending on some channel partners, it could maybe get a little bit into the 1st of April, like maybe first week of April, just depends. All right, so let's get ready to jump into our next card here. Give me 1 second. Let me just go ahead and see if we have any quick questions that might have popped up right in there. So I'll go ahead and try to answer those. All right, so what questions might have popped up right here? So Jake, of course, if you guys not aware, Jake is actually part of Team ASUS, and he's actually also an admin and moderator that we have in our PCDIY group. Again, if you're not joining us there, make sure to go ahead and check it out. Also helps to run our social accounts for our ASUS graphics accounts. I can attest to the VG32UQA1A. Absolutely love mine. Yeah, it's a fantastic monitor. I really love it. It's super sharp, it's bold, it's bright, outstanding colors. It's really a fantastic monitor for like everything, for content creation, for general content consumption, and for gaming. kind of does everything. Michael's asking, any chance for a curve model? Yeah, we do also have curve models. Like, again, I don't want to go into every kind of offering that we do have, but we do have actually multiple curve models, and we have actually released over the last, I'd say, few weeks to the last couple of months, actually some updates in terms of the curve. So we do have a few different models. I think about the only hole that we have right now is we haven't replaced the kind of the high-end ROG Swift PG35 series model that we had, which was a G-Sync Ultimate based model. So that is something that we're evaluating that we don't have a direct replacement for, that we did previously offer. But overall, we do have quite a number of ultra wides and also curve based options. Okay. Let me see. Hey, PGPCs, man, happy to have you here. Fantastic. So Gus King says, can you explain overclocking in 60 seconds or less? So I do actually have a dedicated video that's on our YouTube channel that it's actually talks about our ASUS AOC feature. The whole video is not too long. It's only about 10 minutes, and I'd recommend checking it out. It actually talks specifically about overclocking. But in short, the easiest way to understand overclocking is taking a part, and that part could be the CPU, it could be the memory, or it could be the graphics card. And technically, actually, your monitor can be overclocked as well. But generally, it's one of those three parts. And you're asking it to operate outside of its defined specifications. That's what it is that you are essentially asking it to run at a faster level than what it was defined for. So, you know, if we talk about it from a very basic perspective, if it was the CPU and the CPU was designed to run up to 4.8 gigahertz, you ask it to run at 5.2 gigahertz, right? 5.2 gigahertz, of course, is faster than 4.8 gigahertz. So that is ultimately what it comes down to. What you have to keep in mind is that not every CPU can do that. Just like some people can run faster than other people. Some people can lift more weights than other people. There's going to be variance amongst CPUs. Your cooler, right, that you have for your CPU affects this. Generally, the better the cooling, the more that you can generally overclock, right? And there's also going to be other factors like, you know, when you overclock something, it can consume more power and produce more heat. So again, that comes back to maybe having a better quality cooler. So that's just a little bit of a basic explanation. Hopefully that helps you to understand a little bit. But if you're interested in overclocking, definitely check out that video. Jake, maybe you can see if you can link them that ASUS AIOC video that we have on our YouTube channel there in the chat, or feel free to go ahead and join us on our PCDIY group. Yeah, Jake also makes a point, and it's something I've talked about here too, is that if you do want to easily overclock your graphics card, you can do that in GPU Tweak 3. So GPU Tweak 3 is our graphics card utility. Even if you don't know anything about overclocking, you can literally just load up the utility, and there's a one-touch OC button. And pretty much what we've done is we've kind of tested a whole bunch of the graphics cards, and we kind of know what a moderate kind of overclocking range that's safe for most of the graphics card is. So if you just want to test to see, hey, can I get a little bit better performance out of my card? Load it up, click that button. That's all you would need to do, even if you don't really understand it. And worst case, if your system was to crash, then you just click it back to the default and you would be back up and running and you'd be good to go. So pretty simple. All right, guys, let's get ready to talk about our next item here, which I know for a lot of people is actually a pretty exciting card. So let's get ready to get into it. So this is going to be a brand new update that we have here in terms of our graphics card lineup. So many of you are, of course, aware we've got our ROG STRIX series. We have our TUF Gaming series, right? We have our Dual series. We have our KO series. We have our Phoenix series. And we have our Silent series, or ASUS series. The Silent series and the ASUS series kind of go together. And then lastly, we do have a model, but it's not always consistently available, which is going to be our Turbo series. But this is going to be kind of a special series that we've added into the mix, which is going to be our Noctua series. So this was a collaboration that we kicked off in the last generation in the 30 series, and we're now excited to bring it back for the 40 series. So you guys can actually see right here, this is the brand new ASUS GeForce RTX 4080 OC Noctua edition based graphics card. It is a truly impressive card from top to bottom. If you're really looking for the pinnacle in terms of the 4080, performance, not only in terms of sustained clock speeds, because you have a super performant base heatsink and fan assembly, but you're also looking for the quietest 4080 in its class. This is definitely going to be the card for you. Now, it's quite impressive when you consider that already the TUF Gaming 4080 and the ROG STRIX 4080 were cooler, quieter, and faster than the FE-based graphics card, which was already a performant-based solution for this generation. A lot of people were impressed by the FE 4080 design, but our TUF Gaming graphics card and our ROG Strix cards were cooler and quieter than both of those. So it actually took a lot of work to be able to get this card to even be quieter than what we were doing with the TUF Gaming and the ROG Strix series. So let's go ahead and go a little bit deeper though into the design. Well, what do we have to do? Well, the first thing is you see is you've got these fantastic high performance Noctua fans. Now these are full 120 millimeter fans. They're pretty much these guys right here. So these great high performance fans, of course, have a much thicker diameter, right? And they are larger than the traditional fans that you would have on your graphics card. And so to be able to actually accommodate them, this entire heatsink assembly that we have here had to actually be redesigned. And so that's actually additional work that we did with Noctua in terms of redesigning the shape and the dimensions and actually the topology of the heatsink assembly to be able to best kind of accommodate these fans. Because technically, sure, you could hack a heatsink assembly and you could deshroud it, but it wouldn't necessarily be optimally suited. Sorry about that. There we go. So in this design here, if we take a closer look, so what did we make changes? Well, we made a number of different changes. One of the first changes right here is going to be actually in the heatsink itself. So that heatsink base plate actually was changed over. So we went over to a actually vapor chamber based design on that model. And so this actually allowed us to then work from the benefit of actually changing up the heat pipe configuration. So in the heat pipe configuration, there was essentially 8 total heat pipes that were present in the TUF Gaming card, which was kind of like the reference that we were pulling from in terms of the design, but there was a different mix in terms of the diameter of those heat pipes. So we had 6 millimeter and we had 8 millimeter. And so we actually changed up the combination and we actually went with more 8 millimeter base heat pipes and changed the overall configuration. We also shortened this entire heatsink assembly to be actually more complementary to in line with essentially the 2 fans. And that allows essentially more optimal kind of targeting in terms of that downward static pressure and that airflow from the fan to align with the heatsink, where the actual body would have been a little bit longer in the kind of standard model. Now the offset of that though is that when you essentially compress that in and you essentially make the heatsink assembly more dense, is that it's going to get thicker. And so this card is actually quite a bit thicker. So the standard cards, right, you're going to be looking usually around like a 3.2 to like 3.5 slot base. This is a 4.3 slot base graphics card. So it's quite large. So in most situations, you're probably not going to have people that are probably going to mount this vertically. It would really make the most sense to mount it horizontally in terms of its overall design. So this image here that I have is probably going to be the most sensible route. So probably not vertical like this, it would be like this. And under this configuration, I think it looks really nice. You get a little bit of the brown, but it's predominantly, I think, a fairly neutral based card design that works well. You have a little bit of the accenting finish there on the back plate that's also present, but again, very minimal. You have the 12 volt high power connection right there for that PCI Express cable. So that's actually how you would power in your connection. So pretty straightforward. Now, one thing to keep in mind in terms of the overall power target is there is going to be a difference in terms of the actual power target rating. Now, what do I mean by power target? When you talk about a graphics card, there's essentially a kind of power envelope that the graphics card has available to it. Now, why would you potentially want to adjust that power target? Well, if you're maybe looking to get more performance from the graphics card, you can go ahead and adjust that power target. So the power target at default is going to be the same between, let's say, like the TUF Gaming and the Noctua based graphics card. Or also even actually for the for the Noctua and for like the TUF Gaming series. Where you're going to notice a difference though, and maybe some of our series would be actually in the maximum power target. So the maximum power target is going to be higher, take for instance on the ROG Strix card. The ROG Strix card supports a maximum of 420 watts, while the Noctua supports a little bit of more conservative rating. It's the same maximum that you have within the FE card, which is going to be 355 watts approximately in terms of that, but that's just something to be mindful of. You're kind of wondering like where there might be maybe some differences. Also, it'll be very easy and common to probably see a lot of users water block maybe a TUF Gaming graphics card, maybe water block a ROG Strix card because of that higher power limit, but you really wouldn't want to water block a Noctua card because from the kind of the pricing perspective, a large part of what you're paying for is going to be for that customized heatsink assembly and the fans, right? And so it wouldn't make sense to put a water block on it. So if you're going to water cool, definitely you want to water cool a TUF Gaming. I think 4080 is my default recommendation. And then if you really wanted, let's say a 4080 that had more margin, then you could consider, like I said, the ROG Strix card, which has the highest power limit rating, right, for that 420 watt level of customization, right? So that is going to be the Noctua 4080, and I don't know if it's still available. Let me go ahead and just see if it's actually still there. Let's see if it's actually still there. We still have it available. I know that we had a small quantity. Yep, so it is actually still available, guys, and there you actually will see the pricing for it. So it is going to be $16.50 in terms of its actual price. We may actually have some upcoming bundled promotions that might discount the pricing a little bit. So if you pair it with something potentially like a TUF Gaming ATX 3.0 power supply or maybe other ASUS components, you might see like maybe like a $50 reduction. So keep tuned for that in the not too distant future. This isn't a limited production card, but it is, well, excuse me, not a limited edition card. So meaning that it's not, essentially when this product sells out, it's no longer going to be available, but it is going to be a more limited production. So compared to our ROG Strix or our TUF Gaming series, which have much higher availability, this will be available but in much smaller quantities. So we're almost, I think, sold out of the initial allocation that we have right now for the Noctua 4080, but we will then get another inventory set in probably about next month. And so there will consistently be availability for the Noctua base graphics card. You just want to keep in mind that it's, like I said, going to generally be in a smaller production quantity than compared to, let's say, our TUF Gaming series or our ROG Strix series of graphics cards. Some people ask, can I still, make all the standard levels of adjustments? Yes. If you want to overclock the card, overclock the memory, the GPU, the power limits, all of those things are all adjustable and all available to you within the GPU tweak utility. It still has the VBIOS option, so P mode and Q mode, although for most people I would assume, especially because you're trying to get the quietest level operation, you're probably going to be running the Q mode. And it's really impressive. The fan on this card, right, on average, when this fan is running under gaming load, it is operating at less than 1,000 RPM. It's operating at or around, like 850 RPM. It is effectively silent. It is super, super quiet. It's really, really impressive. So if you're looking for a super cool and quiet card, whether for maybe advanced production, maybe you're running GPU compute, you're running, large encodes in terms of workflow, or of course, if you're gaming, this could definitely be an option for you. Let's go ahead and see if we got any questions that might have popped up right there. Yeah, so Snef points out there, yes, I think actually I showed this in yesterday's GCS stream, but yeah, Mr. Matt Lee, he actually did kind of like a post where he took actually the Chromax fans and he put that in there. Personally, I don't think it looks good. People that keep asking about, hey, just make a Chromax version of it. Part of our perspective at why we wouldn't make a Chromax version is one, we actually really love the Noctua color scheme. And then another part to this is going to be that our TUF Gaming graphics card, as well as the ROG Strix graphics card, are already monochrome. They're already black. So it would literally be releasing a third black graphics card, which for us doesn't kind of make sense because the reality is that, what we see in terms of kind of users is they want a little bit more diversity in terms of the choice, right? So that's the reason why, like ROG Strix, we also have a white model, right? Or why we have different kind of designs that we integrate on, let's say, the dual series. But here you can actually see an example of what it looks like from Mr. Matt Lee here with the Chromax, where he replaced the fans and he put the Chromax fans in there. And what you'll notice there is that the black, it works, because black is a neutral, right? But at the same time, really, if you were going to have like a Chromax-based edition, you would want the entirety of the shroud design to be complementary to that. So it all should be kind of in that black design vein. Now you could, I guess, if you wanted to really mod it, you could mod it, right? You could take this shroud off and you could paint it and you could try to match it up from that regard. But in my personal opinion, I think the default looks really, really good. Okay. So that is going to be that. Any plans for a black ROG Strix Micro ATX board? So I think we have, we have, of course, the ROG Strix, I think it's, let me see here. I don't know if we still have this one available. So you can check. I believe this board is already been EOL on our side, but there may still be maybe some new old stock. It wasn't very popular, and this is the reality when people sometimes ask for models and then they say, hey, how come you don't make these models? And the reality is that sometimes it can be a voice of too little to really justify production of products for a sustained period. And this is always a balancing act when you talk about, you know, serving niches, right? As far as trying to design and develop a product that complements every single possible user's want, right? And the reality is that it can be really challenging from a cost production perspective, right, to try to produce a board for every single possible user, right? So we have to try to balance that out. But here we did produce one. We actually had the ROG STRIX Z690-G gaming Wi-Fi. We did not update an actual Z790 version because, like I said, we didn't really see a large enough demand to justify the additional production for it. But this board has already seen UEFI updates, so it is fully compatible with 13th gen series processor. So whether you want to run a 12th gen or a 13th gen, if you can get this one, it's a fantastic motherboard. I really love the feature and function and design on it, and it is really comparable to a higher end ATX based motherboard, but gives you that additional flexibility compared to mini ITX with a couple more slots and also 4 DIMMs, right? If you really need it, although the reality is you don't need 4 DIMMs for modern platforms, especially because DDR5 has higher density, right? You can have literally 2 DIMMs and have 64 gigabytes, which again, for gaming, there's literally no need to ever even go over 32 gigabytes. So having even 64 gigabytes is really kind of over any type of usable configuration, right? But yeah, you can see if you can find this board if we still have it available. All right. Hey Lano C, man, happy to have you. Wes, fantastic, man, thanks for joining us here for the stream. Yeah, that's a lot of heat pipes. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of heat pipes, and it's, like I said, when we talk about the overall heat pipe design, there's a lot of factors that kind of go into the design and the development of the heat pipes to be able to kind of optimally have them work for the topology and for the actual airflow configuration and everything that's working along with them. The main point that really just trying to kind of make here is that, of course, we just co-worked with that with Noctua to try to make sure to optimize really the heatsink topology and the heat pipe configuration to work best with the actual fans, right? Because the whole point is you're going to actually put these fans on there. You want them to really be performing as best as they can. So it wouldn't make sense for us to literally just take the same type of design, right? And so again, for reference, in case you're wondering, you can see right here with the original heatsink design, as I noted, right? You had a 6mm heat pipes, and then you had 2 8mm heat pipes. And then you can see right here for the actual Noctua design, you can see actually how the actual topology changed, right? In terms of actually its density. And then also the heat pipe configuration, where right here in the center, you can see those heat pipes got considerably larger, right? So we shifted over here and we have the primary focus because you actually have more airflow. You have more static pressure actually getting into the heatsink assembly along with those heat pipes, where you can see these 5 heat pipes are all now 8mm heat pipes, and then just runs right here are going to be 6mm heat pipes. And then you can also see right here that the actual base plate design, as well as what I was referring to in terms of the actual density and the length of the actual heatsink assembly has been revised. So we went with a much shorter heatsink assembly, right, to optimize essentially the dimensions to be in alignment with the fans. All right, so that is pretty cool. That is going to be for the Noctua based graphics card. That wraps up there. So 3 new product updates in that regard. Pretty cool in terms of what we've got going on right there. All right, let me go ahead and see any other quick questions that might have came up right there. JY, will we have a Phoenix version of the Noctua card? I'm not sure I get what you mean. Phoenix are our most entry-level series of graphics cards. So we generally wouldn't have something like a Noctua because the Noctua is a very premium performance-based product. So generally our Phoenix series is reserved for something like a GTX 1650 or maybe like a 1660 type series, but you won't even see that we have Phoenix series for something like a 3060 based graphics. Well, actually no, not necessarily. Actually, I take that back, right? Because we do actually have a Phoenix 3060, but I'm assuming kind of what you mean is something like this, right? Like, so a compact card, that would be a really interesting looking card because again, this is already kind of a taller card in terms of its Z height. So we would have to make it even larger because this, you would even have a larger fan diameter. So that would be a really interesting design. you'd also have to be like, what GPU would you really do that with? Now, you could do it with something like a 3060, but would people want to see a 3060 kind of like Noctua card? I don't know, because already the power envelope that you already have at that lower end GPU, right, it's not going to be as demanding from a thermal target perspective. So even if you could make it quieter, do you have that value, right? And it could be maybe, because it would be extremely quiet regardless. Under any scenario, it would be it could even be quieter and even have better temperature performance. We'd also maybe have to reevaluate, of course, the heatsink assembly. But yeah, I can definitely tell you that's not under the R&D and the research and development. We don't have any plans for doing anything like that at this time. As of right now, the Noctua is right now being focused on just that 4080. We are continuing to evaluate some things like in terms of like de-shrouding concepts and maybe flexibility in terms of like fan design for the future, but nothing else to kind of disclose right now. It would be stumpy, thick, and tall, but short. Yeah, it would definitely be a really kind of interesting kind of card, because yeah, it would change the dimensions very much, right? So it would be this really short card, right? But at the same time, it would have a much higher clearance. And that also kind of would be a little bit of a balancing act on whether or not that would make sense, because one of our most popular cards that's actually in that 3060 is, if we go really trying to balance the form factor design, would be an example like here with our 3060 Dual, which is our Dual Mini. And this works really, really well when you do this type of design, because you can control the Z height and still have it be really compact in terms of its actual length. And even for something like this 3060, you can fit this down into even chassis that are like 6-liter chassis, right? Where technically the Phoenix, right, because you actually have to make it taller and thicker, it might not even fit in a ultra small form factor chassis. So then you get to the rationale is like, so the only people that would be able to use it would be people that would be building in like a large ATX chassis. And then it starts to get tricky on like that total relative value proposition that I was talking about, right? So overall, just something to keep in mind. But those are going to be the 3 products that we have here. So I think, let me just see, what else do we have next up? Next up, let's go through some quick promotions that we have going on here, guys. If you guys, of course, have any more questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll go ahead and tackle this as we can. So let me go ahead and pop over here into our promotions. Do I have here? All right, guys, so let's go ahead and see what we've got going in terms of promotions. Got a couple of ones that I think are going to be some nice little promos for you guys. All right. Let me go ahead and open up these links here, and I'll drop these links in the chat too. And did I drop I don't think I dropped the link in there for actually the... did I drop the link? If you guys can let me know for the motherboard and for the monitor. If not, then I will go ahead and drop those in there right now for you guys. So if anybody's interested in those products, you guys can check those out. All right, so here's the link for the Noctua card. Here is the link for the monitor. And here is the link for the motherboard. And Andreas, thanks for your feedback. So yeah, I mean, I definitely kind of understand where you're coming from, but you know, you have to look at it from the entirety of our product portfolio perspective. So when you kind of evaluate, I'd say the features, functions, and designs, right? It's not always for every user just about performance, right? Some users maybe have specific priority towards specific usage scenarios or specific operating profiles. If, let's say, from a 48 perspective, all you cared about was purely just price to performance, then you would buy like our 4080 standard, right? Our 4080 standard comes in actually at the same price as the FE card. Now, even though a lot of times people compare the FE card as being the kind of benchmark in terms of the pricing, actually, I don't know that that's accurate. And part of the reason why it's not necessarily accurate is the FE card is a limited edition card. You can't even get it at every single channel partner. You cannot get it from every single e-tailer, right? So you actually only have a limited number of sources. Some users cannot even purchase an FE card because they don't have an e-tailer, they don't have a brick and mortar person that's carrying that, right? So our card, take for instance, like in terms of our TUF Gaming graphics card, has broader channel availability. That being noted, if your goal was just to get a cool, quiet, well-built, and fast 4080, then the TUF Gaming is going to be a great choice. And from a value proposition, you get similarly same people that sometimes go, why do I want to pay more for another 4080 with like your ROG Strix? Well, maybe you prioritize even, like I said, that higher power limit because you're an overclocking enthusiast and you want maybe more margin, right? Maybe you want the additional RGB elements that are going to be present on the card. Maybe you want the additional fan connect headers that that card has. Now, just like in a motherboard where some users go like, I don't need to buy a Hero because I don't need maybe, 12 USB ports that are, and with 4 of them being type C, or I don't need maybe on the extreme 10G networking, or I don't need this anime matrix, right? Value is going to be very much dependent on the wants and needs respective to that specific product, right? So when we have our product stack defined, right, we have to look at it from the perspective of what is the kind of audience that we're attempting to apply to. We're not attempting to have the Noctua 4080 actually be sold to every user that wants a 4080 because that's actually going to be more in line with our TUF Gaming based graphics card. That's the actually broadest part of the market for just people that want a great 4080 graphics card. You should be buying the TUF Gaming graphics card, right? If you want maybe even better performance with even lower temperatures and maybe a little bit more overclocking headroom, then the ROG Strix card is the card for you. And similarly, there's a premium for the white edition card, which is a smaller production, but it's still a popular niche within the market that you get people that just want a white graphics card. So we have a white variant that costs more than the standard ROG Strix, right? And then this is then even another sub niche, right? Where you do have users that are super critical. Now, I think if we measure the dB rating, the dB rating is about 5 dB delta between, I think, like the ROG Strix card to like the Noctua graphics card. And in some scenarios, it could actually even be more than that. Now, again, that gets into the kind of the nuance as a user is like, how much are you noticing the subtlety of acoustic tones and noise? Do you have your system like right next to you? Or do you have your system like maybe 3 feet away from you and maybe it's on the floor, right? All those factors kind of come into play. So our perspective really comes down to is we are defining a product that is designed for a certain part of the audience, not for the entirety of the market. And so this is always a tricky part when you talk about some products and justification, I think, in terms of how users see pricing for a specific product, or why does that product even exist? Like when we make an extreme motherboard, we have some users that go, that makes no sense to make a $800 or $1,000 or a $2,000 motherboard. The reality is that product isn't probably necessarily made for you as that user, right? So that's always a tricky balancing act to try to find, right? Are we making a product that one has a part of the market? But I can tell you, at least from the prior generation, we had really, really strong feedback from users that did adopt and buy the 3070 and the 3080, which did carry a price premium over our other cards. To where we said, okay, let's go ahead and make this 4080 base version. So hopefully that gives you some perspective or some insight into kind of the strategy behind it. Okay. All right. RC Cosplay is going is I have the Strix Flare Animate keyboard. The Momo GG's PC hardware has the Animate. Yeah, so yeah, it's kind of similar to that. This is the color anime matrix, right? The RG Strix Flare Animate is our keyboard that actually has the cool little animate display section on the keyboard, but that one's actually in monochrome, right? It's not in coarse color. That would be pretty sweet though if it was actually in color, but that's pretty sweet, man. RC Cosplay, thanks for actually being part of Team RG and Team RG Strix. So pretty cool. So quick question here is, do you prefer the 4090 Strix horizontal or vertical? All right. Everybody knows. Jake, let them know. Let them know in the chat. Everybody knows my personal preference is horizontal. I think it looks best. But even outside of, I think my personal preference in terms of how I think it looks, horizontal, there's less issues with horizontal mounting because you eliminate the kind of challenges or the issues that can come up with riser cables. You have better access to the components and to the bottom portion of headers that are going to be on a motherboard. There's less EMI based issues that can also present themselves. So overall, I always tell users, try it out first horizontally, see if everything's working. And if everything's working, and then maybe you still decide that you do want to go vertical, then you can try it out in a vertical configuration. But it also gives you a delta, because you can actually test out your temperatures. You can see how everything's working. You can see if everything's working smoothly first in the best configuration from a stability and reliability perspective. And then you could switch into a vertical, which, like I said, depending on your riser cable, depending on your chassis and maybe clearance, there could be other factors that you have to accommodate on, whether maybe the cables actually work correctly in the vertical orientation, whether there's enough spacing for airflow. There could be other factors in there. So especially with the large card like the ROG STRIX 4090, I would recommend first going horizontal and then secondary consider vertical. That being noted, I've seen absolutely fantastic builds in terms of the design aesthetic where vertical has been used as the actual mounting mechanism. So it's not that it, I don't think, can look good. I just think overall I prefer horizontal for a number of reasons. All right, very, very cool. Kevin Daly says, I got mine earlier with the ASUS ROG Cetro 2 wireless. Watch out for the sales and promos. Yeah, so Kevin's just noting there that we did actually have our ROG Cetro 2 wireless actually in-ears on sale. But speaking of sales, let's go ahead and talk about these guys, because I said I was going to note on some of these promos really quick. So let me just go ahead and get into them. So first one right here, guys, is going to be the TUF Gaming M4 Air. This guy's a super, I mean, it is a super ultra lightweight base gaming mouse. Comes in at 47 grams, has absolutely really, really great build quality, some nice crispy clean switches that have some really nice actuation and feel, very lightweight base cable, pretty much almost drag free, nice smooth skates on there. And we actually use a nano coating. There's actually a nano coating on the inside here to protect the PCB. So even if you were to have dust, debris, dander, liquids, something like that get on the inside, it won't affect the actual mouse. So even though weight has been saved by essentially going with this actually cutout design, you don't actually have to worry about the kind of the durability or the reliability. So fantastic option. It's already normally priced at a great price point of $50, but it's $10 off right now. You can get it for 40 bucks. Okay. Then we have its kind of brother, which is going to be the M4 wireless. So this is also a very lightweight base mouse, coming in at 62 base grams. Nice, crispy, clean, consistent switches as well. Nice 100% PTFE feed on there for nice, smooth response. High quality 12,000 DPI sensor that's very smooth, very accurate in terms of its performance. It has nice flexibility that, unlike a lot of our, of course, ROG mice, which all of our ROG mice have built-in rechargeable batteries, I still like the convenience of also having the ability to immediately swap and use a AA or AAA battery. And that actually does change the weight distribution and the balance distribution a little bit in the mouse. So it's actually a cool kind of little tweak factor. And there's a little converter that comes inside the box that allows you to go back and forth between whether you want to use AA or a AAA base battery. Very, very cool based option as well if you want to be able to take advantage of a dual mode connection mouse. So it's supporting gaming grade wireless, but then also supporting Bluetooth if maybe you just want to use it with like your laptop or a tablet or something like that. Okay. This one you save 15 bucks. So normally $60, comes in at $45. Okay. Then we've got the TUF Gaming H1 wireless headset. This is a lightweight headset. It's going to be coming in at sub 300 grams. Sub 300 grams for me is really lightweight. I think very, very comfortable. Nice suspension band so that it doesn't kind of do a lot of pressure or clamping force on your head, which is nice. Nice adjustable boom mic. And this part is really cool right here. This is the actual USB-C adapter. It's a really simple adapter that's 2.4 gigahertz, low latency wireless. It's great. You can use it with your phone, your laptop, your Nintendo Switch, your desktop, whatever you want. Just plug that in and bam, you've got instant, reliable 2.4 gigahertz latency connection there. Up to 15 hours in terms of the battery life. There's on-ear cup controls as well to be able to adjust things. And this comes in normally at $90, and right now you can save 20 bucks and get it for $70. And rounding it off, for maybe just something again on the entry side for you guys. A lot of times I'm talking about things that might be more expensive, but we've got our TUF Gaming entry K1 and K1 and M3 combo pack. And so the combo pack's pretty cool because the combo pack gets you actually a keyboard and a mouse. So you have a nice just TUF Gaming keyboard right here. It's very resistant. It's actually got resistance in terms of liquid. So again, if maybe you're a little bit more hazardous, you'd like to drink around your desk, you're worried about things along those lines, you want that nice little kind of volume knob, which is kind of a cool little addition right there. Of course, can fully synchronize in terms of RGB lighting with our motherboards and with any ASUS Aura enabled system. And then you also get the M3 mouse, which is a nice solid mouse there too in terms of just basic, good acceleration, good sensor in there. Nice, actually pretty lightweight in terms of the overall design as well. So a nice little package that, again, gets you both of those items, normally $70, 20 bucks off, coming in at 50 bucks. So overall, some definite nice promotions that we have going on there. If you're interested, I'd say check those guys out. I'm gonna go ahead and drop those links in the chat. So give me 1 second here to drop those in there for you. And just because Kevin reminded me, I'm going to throw these two in here just as kind of some last promos right here. But we also have the ROG Cetra. The Cetra is going to be actually a USB in-ear monitor or in-ear bud kind of design. But the really cool thing that I love about this is actually going to be native USB-C. And so there's actually an integrated DAC in here that's really nice because it helps to improve the audio quality, gives you a little bit better detailing and soundstage. And this is a really nice unit. Actually, I really love this model. It uses LSR drivers. These LSR drivers, they have a really nice tonality and detailing to them. It also allows for more consistency between the left and the right design. It's actually a newer type of material composition that's only been around for the last couple of years compared to a lot of times the more traditional cellulose material, which is used for driver composition. But the native USB-C connection, again, it's great because plug it into your phone, your laptop, your desktop, your Switch, whatever you want, and you're going to be good to go. The accessory kit is fantastic. It comes with all kinds of tips. And I love the actual little kind of wings because the wings will compress on the inside of your ear, holds it really nicely in place. So even if you want to run, you want to walk briskly, you know, maybe go with the gym, a really nice set right there. And you get that guaranteed reliability of course, a hardline that you're not going to run into any issues that you could potentially have when you talk about wireless connectivity. So really, really nice in that regard. You also do have active noise canceling and integrated microphone here. So the active noise canceling is great. You can go ahead and toggle that on if you're looking for that. And you also even have some subtle little RGB lighting, which is on this to be able to show a little bit of flare in your ear, but not too much, just a little bit to show off that RGB lighting. So these ones normally come in at $120, and right now you can get them for 90 bucks. And if you want to go truly wireless, we've got the Cetra True Wireless, normally $100, and right now 20 bucks off for 80 bucks. This is a really, really nice option that we have for you right here. The Cetra 2 Wireless is actually going to feature 10mm drivers. You're going to have up to 27-hour battery life included in the charging case. Charging case is actually going to be fast charge support, so you can actually get over, I think, like an hour and a half with just like 15 minutes. Battery life without the charging case, so if you just went and you were walking, it's about 5.5 hours or so it's quite nice in that regard. Like I said, you have the quick charging support, nice little cool design, supports wireless charging as well outside of actually physical quick charging. IPX4 rating, so even if you're working out or if you're taking a little bit of a brisk walk out where there's a little bit of drizzle, you're okay. Integrated touch controls, and you of course also have active noise canceling, and you have an ambient mode. And you can also go ahead and customize it within the Armor Crate software, which is available for both iOS and Android-based devices. So you can set up your own custom profiles and EQs and things along those lines. And again, this one comes in at a nice savings of 20 bucks. So I'm going to go ahead and drop these in the chat for you right here. And we're going to move into our PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So let me go ahead and drop these in, guys. So there we go there. Hey, Koala 20. I'll absolutely love it, man. Who doesn't love koalas, right? You know, so fantastic, man. Thanks for joining us on the stream. Happy to have you here. So there we go. There's the Cetra Wireless. And we're going to go ahead and now drop in the Cetra 2 USB-Cs. We're going to drop in then the TUF Gaming combo. We'll drop in the TUF Gaming H1 wireless headset, TUF Gaming M4 wireless, and then the M4 Air ultra lightweight wired mouse. And if you guys are not part of our ASUS PCDIY group, definitely consider joining the group because I drop in promos there all the time regarding all kinds of products, from monitors to routers to graphics cards to, you know, motherboards, pretty much the entire product category. Sometimes these promotions literally only last a day, day and a half, 2 days. So sometimes literally by the end of the week, I can't even talk about some of the promotions that I might have had 2 days before because they were literally available for that time. So, you know, you do want to go ahead and check out those promotions if you're part of our group because they happen. And sometimes, like I said, they literally only last a day or two. All right. All right. Very, very cool. Let's go ahead and keep moving that along. All right, so now let me see. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can bring up, because I didn't actually prepare my folders here for the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, so going to take a second to go ahead and bring those up. So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop those, and I'll do my best to go ahead and get to those while I can. So let me go ahead and bring this up here. So if you guys have not ever kind of seen our PCDIY Builder Spotlight, or you want to submit, essentially what we like to do is we like to show off your builds, whether they're mini ITX to ATX, air-cooled to water-cooled, it doesn't matter, modded or not modded. We'd love to be able to see your ASUS-based builds. And so if you're part of our ASUS PCDIY group, you can go ahead and submit via the Google form and upload essentially the little questionnaire along with photos of your system to be able to be featured here on our stream. So it's a cool way to be able to go ahead and showcase your build, and also just give a little bit of recognition to our amazing community of builders that work with us. So let me go ahead and bring up my submission forms here. So all right, we got a PCDIY Builder Spotlight here. And bring up the folder here. Give me 1 second. I like that one. Somebody's asking there is the chair for JJ. Yeah, I'm hoping, right? Will an ROG STRIX 4080 fit in the Lian Li Evo? So I think the issue that you have there is depending on the mounting configuration, right? And depending also on the cable kind of configuration. So a lot of the EVO models, when you put in that card, the cable is going to press up so tightly in there. My recommendation is if you haven't gotten the chassis, consider our GT502. Our GT502 is our split chamber based design. We offer it in white and we offer it in black, and we don't have any issues in terms of having the graphics card, whether it's a 4080 or 4090 be installed. You can install vertically or you can install horizontally, and when you actually have the side panel pressed, there's actually no issues with the cable being obstructed. And so some people, even if you get like a really flush like custom cable, it can be actually too tight and they kind of worry, and so sometimes it's a little bit kind of like dented or kind of pivoted. So we actually have a post on that, and it's actually been shown in our PCDIY group. So if you want to go into the PCDIY group and you want to search for that, you might get the post that actually covers that specific topic in there. So I would recommend actually checking that out and seeing if that answers your question. But overall, I would tell you it is an issue just because of the way that the cable presses up against the side panel. All right, so I'm just downloading the images here right now, so give me 1 second, guys. All right, let's go ahead and just make a quick folder for this one. And this is going to be from one of my favorite builders who actually hasn't had anything as of late. You know, sometimes he's on an absolute tirade in terms of actually the number of builds that he has. But this is actually going to be from Soren, one of my favorite actually builders from Nordic 3D that we're going to go ahead and highlight first, who did an absolutely stunning build right here with a large chassis. And definitely this gets a little bit challenging because sometimes when you're working with chassis this large, you know, it can be tricky to kind of fill in that much amount of space that you have on the inside of the chassis and kind of make it feel not empty or have like portions of like negative space that you might have when you're kind of putting it all together. So let's go ahead, and I think that should be it. Okay, I think we got all the images right there. All right. Oh wait, I think I had a couple more there. Okay, hold on 1 second. One more, and there we go. Okay. All right, so let's take a look here, and this is going to be, let me get the name information. All right, and let's put this in here. So this is going to be from Soren, and this is from Nordic 3D Design. I don't have a name for this one, but that's okay. It's good enough. And let's see, I want you guys to get creative. Why don't you go ahead and let me know what you would name this. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look right here. So first up, we're getting just a little bit of a compressed type view in here. We can see, okay, we've got a little bit of silver, a little bit of black, and then a little bit of red. And so definitely, you guys know I'm always a fan of this color combination. It's very classic in terms of that kind of that ROG vibe, in terms of that black and red aesthetic. So it's already getting, and I'm already getting the positive vibes, All right, and so right here we can see, wow, very, very cool. Definitely it has Soren's kind of hallmark, I'd say, it having a really kind of clean and really nicely done layout. He doesn't go super complicated in terms of his runs. I really appreciate that. He has kind of a focus on the simplicity of his runs to kind of be able to be a little bit more visually distinct at times, but also not necessarily go kind of and have just more runs for the sake of having more runs, right? In that way, I think he really respects kind of simplicity, and it really kind of it goes with that less is more type of concept, while at the same time giving really nice accents and details. So we can see right here some already cool elements in terms of actually helping to fill out that space. So one is, of course, this chassis you can see supports massive radiators. So we were really talking about having support for something like a large 420 millimeter class radiator. Now, you could go with smaller radiators, but going with smaller radiators would create a lot of negative space. And so already here, you can almost see how going with this type of chassis really demands that you actually have to go with huge radiator configurations. If not, you end up having these empty spaces that would look a little bit weird or kind of empty, right? And so it totally makes sense. I really love some of the details though right here, where you can see if we take a closer look at the radiators, where we actually got a two-tone finish. So we've got the black, and then we also then have the white right here. That's really nice. The land leaf fans I think actually work really nicely here, with actually having this small accent strip, which complements the kind of the subtle silver accents that we see throughout the build. So we've got black, we've got silver, got some white. The white's also carried through here within the tubing. Then of course we've got the large, of course, distro integration, the dual pumps in there, which also add just a cool kind of dynamic to them. And then the color, right, with the tempered glass, really, really nice in terms of just how it layers through. But overall, really, really clean. Love also how this has been carried through in terms of the cabling. I think the cabling looks really, really nice, complements the overall look and feel that you have right here, where you've got the gray, the white, the black, and this all tying through again with the same colors that we're seeing throughout the builds. But we're not necessarily seeing it kind of like purposely be matched, right? There's some nice kind of color blocking that's happening here to be able to kind of create some contrast and a little bit of kind of textural elements, which is cool. Dakota was saying, what was the name of the case? Yeah, that's our TUF Gaming GT502. I'll show you a picture after I finish up this PCDIY Builder Spotlight. Okay, but that's the TUF Gaming GT502. All right. So continuing on right here, we can take a little bit of a closer look. Now here's a really cool design. Now normally I like to see a little bit kind of more separation for the, I'd say the left-hand side of the board, so you can see elements like our anime matrix or our polymo lighting. But actually I really like what he did right here. If you notice, he didn't enable the lighting in the polymo section. And this is actually one of my favorite design points that we have on our motherboard, is that we actually purposely designed the board in two operations. Operation with no lighting and operation with lighting. And the actual material that we use, this material has almost like a chrome type feel to it when it doesn't have actually any active lighting, but it also has a bit of diffusion. So when you have the lighting, you actually see the cool pattern that comes up if you want a little bit more of an RGB vibe. But if you want it to kind of serve, like I said, as a cool just accent, then it works really well in that. And so that silver kind of chrome look, I think works really well with the overall color scheme that you have in the system. And then that also is complementary to that mono block that he has on here. So you can see we've got this really nice mono block from EK that's in there. Of course, that covers not only the CPU, but of course the VRM. It's totally not a requirement, but it definitely looks cool. And I like this kind of dual layered design, where you have a little bit kind of more depth and contrast from the two runs of tubing that you have here, right? So you've got one set going in there, and then you've got another set right there, but they're layered over each other, which is, I think, a really, really kind of cool look to it. The Corsair Dominator Capellix is also an interesting choice. It would have been interesting to see what you would have had with like a more diffused LED, but I think they kind of the square bold brights are going to be like a cool, just kind of distinguishing ID design right here that really does help to carry through some of the kind of LED lighting that you see a little bit in here that kind of carries through. So I think it definitely it works. Yeah. And pulling back again, you can kind of see just how it all comes together. Really, really nice balance. Again, I think of the different colors that you have here, a massive amount of fans. I don't even want to see the back in there, right? How much cables you would have to deal with, right? Thankfully here, you of course do have some daisy chaining elements to simplify that, and that does help out. You can see right here, of course, we have fans in terms of a push-pull configuration. So fans right here, fans right here, fans right here, and fans right here. So tons of fans set up right within this, but it makes sense within this chassis. And really cool, distinct element right here with the actual dual kind of distros and the dual pumps. It's very, very cool. And just it gives it a different vibe because it's not something you traditionally see. Sometimes it may be something like the Tower Series chassis from Thermaltake, where you'll see kind of that dual kind of pump and res kind of setup. That is a little bit more common, but I think within a traditional chassis, you don't necessarily see this as commonly. So it is also just creates a little bit of a difference. But I think I appreciate it more so from filling up this space, because if you didn't have this, one, you'd have a little bit more of this negative spacing, and also you could maybe use a little bit of that space to hide some elements within the chassis. So some feedback right here that we have come from Kandichi is clean and powerful build, enough fans to run a hovercraft. That's a pretty good one. Okay. And then we've got a question here, is that what is the benefit to that many fans on the radiator? So I think part of it is not necessarily purely a benefit. If we talk about from pure performance, the reality is a lot of ARGB fans actually have lower airflow and lower static pressure than you would have from a non-ARGB fan. So like our ROG STRIX XF120 fans, these are our very performant based fans, but there's no lighting in them. Generally fans like this, or also like the Noctua fans, these are going to be the best in terms of actual performance when you're really talking about having a lot of static pressure and airflow. But I think part of this is, one, it's an aesthetic choice, right? One is that it helps to fill out the look of the system, because again, if you only went with single fans, you'd actually have a little bit more of negative space. So it might not look as filled out or kind of as good. So you almost kind of have to fill it with having some additional fans. The push and pull can potentially help to provide a little bit of a benefit in terms of temperature performance. It's not going to be massive though. The reality is that you're not talking about like 10 or 15 degree reduction just because you added a second set of fans. So to have that push and pull fan configuration. Really the choice of the fan is going to be more important than generally having it be a push and pull type of fan. So also the thickness of the radiator plays a part, right? There's thinner radiators and thicker radiators. The thicker the radiator, of course, generally the more static pressure that you're going to want from your fan to be able to push through those fins to be able to provide the thermal dissipation performance. All right. Though Soren is a very experienced builder, and I'm sure he's done a great job at balancing out not only the acoustics, so the noise profile of the system, but the cooling performance from this system. So definitely I would expect that. But here it's partly, you know, just that really cool vibe, because of course you can think about the fans right here. Right now we're not seeing a front shot, right? But you can notice there's two sets of fans right here. So there's 2, 4, 6, 8, right? So you've got 8 fans that are stacked in there. And so from the front, that gives it a really bold aesthetic, right? Because you're going to see all of that lighting. So once the system kind of goes off, you're also going to get some benefit from some additional lighting fill from the fact that you've got all those extra fans in there. Nice. Makes me want to try a custom loop maybe for my next build. Yeah, well, you know, that's one of the cool things. Definitely PCDIY Builder Spotlight and a lot of the builds that we have within the community help to sometimes serve as inspiration. We've had a lot of people that have sometimes, you know, started with air cooled and then went to liquid cooled and then went to custom water cooling. So, you know, there's definitely always a thing. And I'll tell you too, if you're interested in water cooling, don't also feel like super pressure that it has to go like this. You know, just you water cooling the CPU and maybe leaving your graphics card without water cooling is totally a viable option. Also, you don't have to go hardline. You could go with just soft tubing. Soft tubing, it's cheaper, it's the same performance, it's much more forgiving, and it's much easier to maintain. And you can get like an easy kit, you know, from a wide range of partners where you can get everything in the box that you need to be able to kind of get up and starting when it comes to doing that. So overall, it's a fantastic build. Really love the way that this turned out. Of course, that centerpiece shows off really well the integration with the mono block there with the, of course, the Hero-based motherboard and this entire setup. So another just fantastic build. I would expect nothing less from Soren. Again, one of the best builders in the game. So fantastic to see him be able to have another build featured here on the PCDIY Builder Spotlight. So very, very cool. Let's go ahead and get into our next build that we've got right here. So let me go ahead and bring up the submission form and see what we got going on. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and let's see what we got here. What are we gonna do? Ooh, Kevin, I see Kevin. If Kevin's still here in the group, I see he submitted something. So we've got an interesting maybe update from him. Got Chris Walker's, but I think he's actually going to submit an alternate update. And I know we featured his system on yesterday's stream. So I'm going to go ahead and see what else we've got right here. What do we got right here? Oh, I think this is going to be cool. Yeah, let's go this route. Okay. I love that, Kevin. Kevin's going, I'm always here. Yeah, Kevin's definitely one of the biggest supporters of, I think, Team ASUS, and he's definitely always in a lot of the conversations and a great member of our community. So, man, thank you so much, Kevin. All right, let me go ahead and just download our images here. I like this build. This build's a little bit kind of like in the opposite direction of what we just showed off. So going with something that might be a little bit kind of more the norm that we have for kind of like a normal gaming build. So let's go ahead and see if I got the name of the system here. So this is going to be Little Monster, and this is going to be from Simon. All right. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at Little Monster. All right, so here it is. And we can see for here, he got ahead and shared, of course, the build components all laid out, which is always kind of fun to be able to kind of just share. So we can see that this is going to be an AM5 based system, but definitely kind of a nice balance right here. We got B650-E, so he went a little bit higher end to be able to get the -E, have more IO, right? Because you have the two chipsets on the AM5 based platform with the E series designation, so X670E or B650E. And then he's also got, not going all the way into 4080 or 4090, but the 4070 Ti, which is a very performant based graphics card. Actually, it's really my kind of core go-to recommendation for users that want a really strong card for high refresh rate 1080 and high refresh rate 1440p. And I think the TUF Gaming card is a perfect choice because it really hits that kind of price to performance value. It's cool, it's quiet, it's also more compact than the 4080 or the 4090, so that's also kind of a win there. All right, so we're going to see a little bit of kind of the setup as it's overall started to kind of come together right here. I can see that this is actually inside of our GT501, so this is one of our older chassis, but still a really nice, easy chassis to work with. I love, it actually features cold rolled steel, which is really, really nice, really durable, has a lot of space. If Snef is still here, Snef, you guys should go check out his, Facebook and his Instagram. He's done some awesome builds in the GT501. One of my absolute favorite chassis. ROG PC has also done some really cool stuff in the GT501. And Mr. Matt Lee has also now recently done a build in the GT501. And we have it in white and we have it in black. A really flexible, easy chassis to work within and not very expensive. So here you can see you've got lots of space right here. Everything's gone in there and been integrated really nicely, really cleanly. He's showing off, this is the actually little, it's kind of like, I guess, the smartphone holder that you have that comes included with the actual graphics card. It's inside the box. It's a little cardboard kind of cutout. So he's just showing you that right there. And there we can see actually a little bit of a closer look as it's kind of come together. Really nice, really clean. And this is the nice thing I love about this GT501. Lots of space to be able to fit everything in there, not have anything be kind of compressed or cramped, and really comfortable. So it doesn't matter the size of the graphics card, the motherboard, the cooler. It just all sits in there comfortably, easily, and it's well supported with a nice rigid design. So still really also clean in terms of cable management. You still have that nice PSU compartment. He's actually using the integrated stand that comes inside the box with the graphics card there to be able to mitigate the card sag. He's then using that nice run through right there for the cabling for that 12 volt high power cable connection. And also our GT501, even though it was designed way before the 40 series, supports 4070 Ti, 4080 and 4090, and you can do vertical and horizontal base mounting, no issues. Tons of top room space. So even if you were to go with a push and pull fan configuration, you can still see you wouldn't be hitting that VRM heatsink, which is nice. So you got lots of room right there, but it looks good, looks clean. I like it, man. I like the way that this turned out. And there we can just see a little bit of a closer shot. Overall well laid out. I mean, and I don't even think you need to go with RGB lighting right here. This is the stock fan setup right here. If you want to add maybe a little bit of light, you could put what's called like a Helios. So Fantex makes a frame that you can add just on top of the fan. It's cheaper than buying an RGB fan, and you can maintain the performance of that fan built on there. And it has like a cool little different vibe than seeing the LEDs inside of the fan, which actually I really like because it's a very soft, clean type of lighting versus the LEDs that are sometimes inside the fan hubs, which have a little bit more of a specular kind of tone to them. So it's a different kind of feel and vibe, but definitely not required. I'll tell you one of the things I've done in the past when I've done a little bit of soft modding is I sometimes will take my brackets and I will spray paint these. So I will say that's the one little thing that bothers me on this Deep Cool. I wish these, the brackets were not so silver. I wish they were a little bit darker. So maybe like a more gunmetal type of color, or if they were black, that would be great. But you can really easily do this yourself. Just, you know, get a little bit can of spray paint, you know, spray it over, let it dry, spray it over again, you know, 2 or 3 coats should be more than enough. And then you can go ahead and it just looks black on black and it looks really, really clean, and it would complement this build and wouldn't have this kind of silver stand out so much. But overall, really nicely clean and well laid out right there. So I got nothing to complain about. There you can see that nice 4070 Ti. It looks great. He's got, of course, the mounting right there for the CPU all set up in there. Yeah, that's a nice, clean, well-executed build. I like it, man. I got nothing to complain about. Like I said, about the only thing that I might have done might have been just to, like I said, maybe like I said, spray paint that little section right there. But let me go ahead and bring up his submission form. So give me 1 second right here. We can read through his submission form. All right, so this is going to be from, I don't know if you pronounce it Simone or you pronounce it Simon. So hopefully I'm not pronouncing it right. You can let me know right there. Not his first build. And let's see, does the build have a theme? Only just well made, right? So it's a build just for some gaming and for some editing. And I think this is a perfect situation for that, right? Like with that AM5, that CPU, that GPU configuration, this is going to be a system that kind of can comfortably handle anything from gaming to productivity to editing, right? 3 words to describe the build: clean but powerful. I definitely would agree with that. Does the build have a name? Little Monster. Core hardware is we have a Ryzen 9's, a Ryzen 7900X. That's inside of a TUF Gaming GT501, then a TUF Gaming 4070 Ti, and then on an ROG STRIX B760-E-F gaming based motherboard. What was the budget for his build? About $3,000. What was he most proud of is the cable management. Is there anything that they would change about the build? No. It took him about 1 day to put the build together. The system's predominantly used for editing and for video games. What's his favorite ASUS function or feature? He's just a big fan of ASUS hardware. Absolutely loves the hardware, you know, its overall features, function, quality. I think you did a great job, man. Solid thumbs up. Like, again, there's really nothing I would change about it. It's a very simple, just turnkey, clean, well-executed build, nice cable management. Definitely my kind of build. Like I said, about the only thing I would do is maybe spray paint those brackets just to give it a little bit of a cleaner look. That would be about it from my part. So Kenneth notes, yeah, really nice. And then we got my kind of build, perfect little monster. Yeah, I think, again, it's a great kind of showcase. Going from, of course, that absolutely stunning build that we had from Soren. This is entirely kind of the other opposite end of the spectrum, but a practical kind of just nice, clean, well-managed, simple build that would be easy, right? To be able to take advantage of some just nice quality performant components, right? So pretty cool there. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our next submission right here. So let me go ahead and bring up our next submission. Give me 1 second here. And I think I've got one other one here. So bring it up. I know I've actually got some others that I've actually got to separate through, but I don't know if I got through them all. Okay, so let's go into our next one right here. And this one's going to be, bring this one up here. This is going to be from Brad. From Brad, I believe it's Brad Cooker. All right, Brad, let's see what you got, Brad. And this is going to be, I don't even know how to pronounce that. Is that Zoludik? Not exactly sure how to pronounce that, so we're gonna go with it. But let's go ahead and see what we got going on right here. Ooh, so we've got a white themed system. Okay, this is going to be pretty cool. All right, so you can definitely see we've got an ROG Strix -A series based motherboard in there. We've got an ROG Strix White series based GPU that's going to be in there, and then we of course have classic Lanley Uni fans that are also inside right here. So carrying over through the entirety of kind of that white theme. And then of course you got blue, which is a natural kind of complement to the entirety of a white theme build. So definitely makes sense. Overall, pretty nice and clean, no issues. I think overall that I'm seeing, you know, you could say some people that would say, hey, I would love to see maybe white cables, but I don't think the white cables really detract, are going to add that much more to kind of really quote unquote making it a white theme build, and it would add quite a bit more cost, right, to get you know, white cables or to kind of sheathe them. But sure, it could be a little bit of a nice touch, you know, maybe if you did it on the GPU, but still even getting a custom cable mod cable in white would definitely add a little bit more of a premium to it. We can see right here we've got the entire right here, so you've got ROG Strix -A series base motherboard, and then we've got of course the ROG Strix 4090 base graphics card, and then that's all going inside of course of our white chassis right there. And then we can see of course also we've got there, and he did actually use an extension right there, white extension, to replace the actual standard cable that actually came with his Thermaltake PSU. I think actually that's the Thermaltake ATX 3.0 PSU, so he already has a native ATX 3.0 12 volt high power cable that's already coming from there. So it would have kind of been even more expensive to then add to that, right, just to make it white. So interesting here, he's actually using one of the contact frames. I'm always torn about the contact frame. Sometimes you get people that ask like, hey, should I use a contact frame? Should I not use a contact frame? The reality is you do not have to use a contact frame. And if you're gaming, I don't actually really see the benefit to it. Contact frames, I think, are going to be most beneficial to actually, oddly enough, not gamers, but creators that are going to be running sustained multi-threaded workloads, because that's where you're generally going to see more of a temperature benefit, or of course, overclockers that maybe want more margin. Part of the reason why I don't recommend them is because the contact frame can actually introduce issues, and it can cause memory issues. It can cause memory channel initialization issues, or you can actually have memory channels that are dropped, or it can actually even reduce overclocking margin. If you get it in there exactly, it can benefit, and it can potentially provide you an improvement in terms of temperatures. But again, from a gaming perspective, your temperatures are already actually quite cool. So the value of actually seeing it, for me, sure, you can go and run your Cinebench and say my temperatures were reduced by 5 degrees, but you're not running Cinebench, you're playing games, and the temperature difference is quite a bit different from a game. But, you know, definitely for enthusiasts that want to get a little bit more margin out there, it is an option out there. So also do keep in mind though that technically this also does void the warranty when you do this, because you're actually changing the actual torque pressure that the socket is actually designed for. So you are actually doing that. But I'm assuming he's also overclocking, so he's already voiding the warranty. So we can see here from the side profile, cool kind of design. I really love that tail light design that we have on the ROG Strix based graphics card. So really cool 360-degree tail light LED design, which is cool. This is one of the kind of, I think, the challenges of you have where I think our GT502 looks a little bit stronger in terms of its front facade, where on a split chamber chassis like this, you lose a little bit of identity and you don't really get a clarity to the look and feel of the system from that front. This system looks great when you look at it from the side because you can kind of see everything, but compared to like a traditional chassis that has like a front facade, you know, you don't necessarily see that as much. But it just still shows you actually that he's got really clean cable management. Everything is looking really nice and tidy, so he gets a definite thumbs up from me there. Nice cable management job right there to pack it all in there. It's always a little bit of a challenge, but overall nothing really to kind of negate right there. Entirely makes sense. And then we have that nice kind of close-up shot, and then he added, of course, his Funko right there. I would say it's a little bit tricky. Like, it's really cool to see the Funko in there, the pop, but like part of me goes, well, if you move it here, you're going to cover the ROG eye. And then if you have it here, you're going to cover the screen, right? And so part of the reason why you paid for that cooler is so that you could actually see the screen. So I'm wondering, it's like, is there a different spot that you could almost put that in there? Now, technically, you could put it over here and it wouldn't really affect things too much because the vented paneling isn't really kind of critical to the card's cooling performance, it does help, but it's not critical. So maybe part of me might maybe bump that a little bit over, but it still looks cool. Overall, it gets a solid thumbs up from me. I like the actually overall build and kind of the look and the feel. I think it's pretty cool. So let me just go ahead and see, is there anything? Got a quick question here from Kenneth. So Kenneth is noting, is it better to run 64 gigabytes of RAM to run the 4070 Ti or just 16 gigabytes or 32 gigabytes? So I would recommend actually, Kenneth, if you're part of our PCDIY group, to actually read our DDR5 Insight post or watch our DDR5 live stream. Essentially, the important thing to keep in mind is that as you increase density, and you increase rank, which rank usually will be increased when you go with higher density memory, your DRAM scaling will actually go down. And so what I mean by DRAM scaling is the likelihood of it being able to run at higher frequencies. So like 64, 66, 68, 7000 MT actually goes down. Your best success at running higher frequencies is always going to come with single rank memory, which would be like 16 and 32 gigabyte kits of memory. So if you want to be able to run faster memory speeds, you want to stay with single rank and lower density. You don't want to go with higher density and higher rank-based configurations. From a gaming scenario, there's no reason at all to run 64 gigabytes. So my recommendation would be get a good 32 gigabyte kit of memory at a speed that makes sense for your budget. And also keep in mind, like I said, there is some margin that you have to account for in terms of your CPU. But for reference, most 13th gen series CPUs can generally run 6800 to 7000 MT plus without too much issues. That's going to be the majority, not all, but the majority of them will be able to run those memory values, and some actually can even run much higher than that. 72, 74, 7600 is actually entirely possible as well. But for the majority, about that 7,000-ish MT target should be your kind of goal, and that would be generally with 32 gigabyte DIMMs, definitely not 64 gigabytes. Okay, but we have a whole post in the PCDIY group. It's called DDR5 Insights that you can read that will answer in that. Okay. Hey, critical error computing. Yeah, critical error computing is, I think, showing some love right there to the build. But let me go ahead and bring up his submission form. So give me 1 second right here. And we'll go ahead and take a look here. Okay, so submission form is going to be for Brad. Oh wow, this is Brad's first build. So everybody in the stream, can we give him a little bit of a round of applause, man? Fantastic. Actually, for a first build too, I think actually did a really solid job on the cable management too. It's well laid out. I don't see kind of any immediate issues or pain points right there. I think you definitely did a solid job, man. So kudos to you. True and true. Does build have a theme? Yes, Hunter by Hunter is Killa, which makes sense, of course, if you guys are a fan of that. So that makes sense as actually where he ties it through. What are 3 words used to describe your build? Is white ROG gang. All right, I like that, man. Team ROG. And then does the build have a name? Yes, that's correct. From the same, of course, Hunter Hunter, right? And in terms of the kind of core hardware that he's got running here, he's got, of course, Lian Li Dynamic Evo, right, the 011. We then have an ROG Strix Z790-A, the DDR5 version, a 13900K base series CPU. He went ahead and also used RTX MX6 for the paste. Memory-wise, he's using actually 64 gigabytes, and he's running 64 gigs, 6400 MT, right? So definitely more than he would need for a gaming scenario. With that actually CPU and that motherboard, he could have probably, for the same cost for going 64, actually probably bought like 68 to like 7,000 MT based memory in a 32 gigabyte kit, which probably would have been my recommendation. But maybe if you need that extra memory, of course, maybe that's why he went that option. So from the AIO side, he's got a 360 millimeter AIO. Then he's got the Lian Li Unifans, an ROG Strix 4090, and then a TUF Gaming 1350 watts. So it's actually much more than you need, right? Probably for the wattage on this system, I would probably say realistically, he's probably looking at a wattage target in or around 650 to 750 watts is probably what the relative target is. And then Antec white cable extensions, and then of course his pop. About $4,000 was about the budget for the build. What he's most proud of is the white ASUS ROG STRIX hardware components. Is there anything that they would change about the build? I'd rather have the Z790 Apex. Wow. Yeah, Apex is a fantastic motherboard, but it was a limited edition board. So definitely I know there were some people that didn't get the chance to be able to pick it up when it was available. How long did it take him to put together the system? Physically building it was about 2 days, and then kind of start to finish, everything was about 4 weeks, so about a month. He uses it for gaming, so some Elden Ring, some Astro Corsa, Snape from Kartov, Ready or Not. That's a cool set of games. Favorite function or feature? He loves just the overall kind of ease of use and using kind of the ASUS hardware. Really likes our ASUS UEFI and also Armored Crate for the RGB lighting control, man. Well, Brad, you did a fantastic job, man. Good job. Definitely gets a thumbs up from me. Kevin, you get some love right there from Michael. And congrats also right there. So very, very cool. All right. Let's see. I think we can probably squeeze in one more build. So let me go ahead and see if we got one more that I can pop in right here. Let me go ahead and see if we can get this one in here. So give me 1 second. Which one am I gonna do here? Let's go, since we got Kevin in the house, let's go with Kevin's Essentio sleeper here. Oh, this bracket right here? Yeah, this is the ROG Herculex. Yeah, I love the Herculex. It's cool. It totally should go inside of a chassis, but I'm not using it. I'm just using it there for a little bit of a set vibe. So it works there. All right, Kevin, let's go ahead and round this out with another little cool update to your I think this is, yeah, your modified build, right? This is the one that's, I think, if you use it for, is it for the emulation or for some retro gaming? I don't remember, but it'll say in your submission form. So I'll go ahead and check it out in your submission form here. Give me 1 second here. All right. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here and see what we got. All right, so cool thing, give you guys a little feedback. So Kevin's actually got a really nice, very kind of quote unquote high-end based system, but he also loves to actually build a number of different systems using sometimes old hardware and kind of putting them together really nicely to be able to serve different functions, different aspects. So everything, sometimes I think he's had some systems actually for kind of like a SAN NAS configuration. He's got another system he kind of dedicates for kind of emulation-based gaming or kind of more retro-based gaming. He's built systems for his brother, and so sometimes it's a great combination of sometimes bringing older components or kind of more mid-range components or some other things kind of together. And I think this is also very realistic for a lot of us that have been PCDIY builders for a long time. It's not necessarily always about putting something new, but sometimes maybe taking other items that we have together and kind of refreshing them in different ways, right? Which I think is one of the cool things about building your own system, is you can do a lot of different things with them. So let's see what we've got here. The cool thing is, first and foremost, is that he took this chassis, which was from our actually like pre-built. So like ASUS does manufacture and produce its own pre-built systems, which have their own motherboards, and they're not DIY systems. You could buy it from like Walmart or Costco or from the ASUS store. And these are just pre-builds for just general people that are looking for a solid, stable, reliable system for general purpose. Here, he took that out though, and he put in all PC DIY components. So we can see right here, he went in and put in a motherboard, a different cooling solution. I think he picked up this DirectCU series graphics card. So the DirectCU series is from years ago. Really great cards. They were triple slot cards, but really cool, very quiet. We had them way back, you know, in the like GTX 700 series era, AMD 4000 series era, right? So that's kind of like the era that we're talking about. And you can also see here, I think maybe he picked up maybe this TUF Gaming power supply back when we actually had them on promo, when we were clearing them out. Great options, because they just integrate everything, have all the cables right there, and you're all good to go, right? But really great job on actually all the cable management on a chassis that wasn't really kind of designed for this. He's kind of packed it all in there. It looks really clean. He added these two Noctua fans in there to give you a little bit of an intake and a little bit of exhaust in there. So that's pretty cool. Let's go ahead and keep taking a look. He added a little bit of lighting there to give it a little bit of flair. I can dig that. So he's got a little LED strip in there. That's cool. And here you can see, of course, some of that modding love, right? You know, the classic original modding from back in the day, right? Of just sometimes cutting things out and giving yourself some airflow when you need it. So, of course, these systems were never designed for kind of high airflow and focus, right? They were just designed as a turnkey basic system. So here you can see he cut that out. I don't know, maybe like a Dremel or something right there. There was a really little bit of a panel right there, and just to be able to maximize some of that intake airflow. And there we can see a nice little, of course, TV setup right there to be able to have some little large format gaming right there. So you can see the system right next to it, enjoying some quality gaming. I can see pretty much at 4K resolution. So that's cool. Yeah, I think you can see a couple of different games right there. So yeah, this one looks like maybe being used as a little bit of kind of like a emulation or kind of like classic game kind of setup. So very cool. These are always kind of fun for me. I love seeing these kind of builds because, like I said, they show just kind of like the spirit of, I think, the PC DIY experience, which I think is something that we love to kind of advocate for and celebrate. So let me go ahead and bring up his submission form right here. And we'll go ahead and take a look. All right, so definitely not Kevin's first build, that's for sure. So did the build have a theme? Is an ASUS based build with secondhand parts. 3 words to describe the build were rough and tough. Does it have a name? The TUF Essential Sleeper. In terms of the core hardware, we've got that classic, man, the 4000 series CPUs. These CPUs are like the gift that keeps on giving. So many of these people still have these series CPUs. So Core i7 4790K, then has an Arctic freezer, i13 in there. That's all running on an ASUS H97 base motherboard, CSM based model. He's then got 8 gigabytes of Corsair Vengeance memory in there. He's got an ASUS GTX 1680 Direct CU top. Wow, he has a top. We haven't made a top edition in a long time. For those of you that are wondering, we used to have essentially like ASUS standard. We had ASUS OC, and then we had a very small percentage of cards that we would release that were called the top. And the top was actually like binning on top of binning, where we would actually bin for the tightest essentially percentage of GPUs that it could even have a higher overclock that was pre-baked. It wasn't about like extending the overclocking margin, it was then giving you that factory overclock even further than the overclocked model. So we called them top editions. So that's pretty cool. He picked up a GTX 1680, and that's actually still a very capable GPU with drivers for a lot of actually games, especially when you're talking DirectX 9 era, DirectX 10 kind of era titles like that. So then he's got it powering. The picture shows 550 watt, but he put 450 watts, so I'm not sure which power supply he's got in there, but it's a TUF Gaming power supply in there. And then he's got WD Black 250 gigabyte PCIe NVMe M.2 based SSD, and then that's all inside the Essentio CM 1730. And then he added 2 Noctua 92 millimeter fans. Overall cost out of pocket for him to kind of get the whole system set up was $250, because like I said, that's the benefit of using stuff that he already had on hand. So not very expensive. What was he most proud of is the clean cable management, which I would definitely agree. For a chassis that wasn't designed really for this, it's really nicely laid out and very clean and well done. Is there anything that you would change about the build? A stronger low mid-range GPU, maybe something like a GTX 1060, a 1660, or a 1650. I would agree, yeah. Even though those are entry by this standard, jumping up to something like a 1660 Super, 1660 Ti, something like that would actually be a nice bump up, and you'd also have more graphics memory. So would be nice in terms of just giving you a more modern GPU, a little bit more performance, actually quite a bit more performance, and also giving you a little bit more flexibility, like I said, especially with the resolution. If he's playing at a higher res like 4K, having a little bit more VRAM would be beneficial. Took him about 2 hours to put it together. Likes to play emulators on this, so some examples are Metro, Mario 64, and Reign of Fire. Favorite ASUS function and feature: long-lasting ASUS hardware, and he's just overall really happy about the reliability, functionality, and the quality. And he's a huge ASUS fan. If you guys haven't seen some of his posts in the PCDIY group, go check it out. He's got an amazing ASUS setup. Very, very, very cool. Overall, Kevin, man, you get another thumbs up from me. Nicely done. So, very, very cool. So that is, oh yeah, Kevin's still joining us right here. So some feedback from Kevin is, this one is for couch gaming in the guest lounge room. All of the games are on my NAS, so no need for large stored locally. Everything is accessed over the network. That's very cool. And of course, with these titles, you're talking about very small files, so the overall latency, especially because Kevin's also, he's got a very performant based kind of networking setup that, you know, no issues in that regard. So that's really, really cool. Chuck gives us some feedback right here. I guess in the spirit of things is that ASUS should make a modern case with a classic 90s beige case look. Pretty interesting. We'll see. I don't know if that's going to happen, but hey, never say never. Maybe as like an anniversary or a throwback or something like that. Maybe GT502 90s edition, right? That could be pretty interesting. All right, guys. That wraps up the PCDIY Builder Spotlight, and that takes care of today's stream. As always, guys, thank you guys so much for joining us for today's stream. If you guys are not part of the ASUS PCDIY group, please join us. It's a fantastic community of now about almost 42,000 members really across the world. We talk about everything from upgrading to overclocking to building your system to systems for photo editing to gaming, right? You know, modding is in there, overclocking is in there, right? Tips and tricks and insights, all kinds of good stuff. As always, we'd love to have you there in that community. And if you guys are not subscribed so that you get alerted to any new videos that we have coming out, make sure to let us know. And to give you a little bit of a teaser, make sure to keep tuned. In the not too distant future, we're actually going to be launching the ASUS PCDIY YouTube channel. So we may actually see a shift to the streams. I don't know yet if we're going to keep them on this channel or we move them over to the PCDIY YouTube channel. But also when we launch that channel, you're going to actually be seeing a lot more of hopefully some tips and tricks and insights into different things. So whether we're going to be talking about, you know, DRAM tuning, UEFI tips and tricks and insights, more overview guides, all kinds of stuff. We're going to be doing a lot that's there. So I hope to have a lot of kind of hopefully consistent content coming out over the days and weeks and months as we get ready to launch, or essentially relaunch, because we used to actually have the PCDIY YouTube channel and we closed it down a few years back, and now we're looking to actually relaunch it. So make sure to keep tuned for that in the not too distant future. All right, guys, with that, take care, take it easy, enjoy your Fridays, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care.